Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of cinema, your archbishop of banterbury, your chancellor of cheerfulness, your pharaoh of physical media, your evangelist of the imagination, and your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett. And I am robcasting it, you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. Welcome to Robservations, the show about something. Robservations episode number 594. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're 6 episodes away from episode 600, which would be next Saturday. Don't quite know what's going to happen with that yet. Stay tuned. Exciting things are afoot. I would also like to say to all of you, I want to thank all of you very much for visiting the Tango Shalom the movie page on YouTube and clicking on the trailer for Tango Shalom the movie, a film I've been working on for quite some time, as it turns out. I asked everyone to go over there, and if you could, watch the trailer and give it a thumbs up, smash that like button, and also subscribe to the channel. And I was hoping, really against all hope, that we could get it up to 10,000 views over the weekend, which we're poised to sail over that shortly. I think we're less than 100 views away from 10,000, and that means a lot. I mean, we launched this film with virtually no industry presence. We haven't shown it to any distributors. We finished the trailer. It begins its festival run in Jaipur, India on the 19th. It will be at the San Diego Jewish Film Festival in February on the 11th, I believe, and then at the Charlotte Jewish Film Festival. That would be this film festival, the Charlotte Jewish Film Festival. And I believe it plays, I think, from the 18th to the March 1st, maybe. And these are all virtual, so they are geo-blocked. But if you have a VPN, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying it is possible to perhaps see it. Very exciting. But thanks to all of you, it has been a pretty exciting launch. Because, look, when you're making an independent film that was made on spec, we made it just like writing a screenplay. We made the film on spec, which means we have no distribution. We have not sold the film yet. No one's even seen the film. I finished the trailer literally hours before I put it up online on Friday. And so it's very exciting to take a labor of love. I mean, one of our main cast members, Joseph Bologna, the actor who plays Father Anthony in the movie, he is an Academy Award-nominated screenwriter, or he was, and he starred in movies like Blame It on Rio. He was in My Favorite Year. He's been in a lot of things. I once heard that Steven Spielberg wanted Joe Bologna to originally play the Sheriff Brody role in Jaws, although I don't know if that's necessarily true. And with his wife of over 50 years, Renee Taylor, they were playwrights, and they were nominated for the screenplay, I think in 71 or 73, for Lovers and Other Strangers, which is a film that was made based on one of their plays. And he's in the film. It was his last. He passed away while we were in post-production. He did get to see a version of the movie. So the movie is truly a labor of love for many people, and including me. I'm very proud of it. I was the producer, one of the producers. I also was the editor. I was the post-production supervisor and the visual effects supervisor. Yes, even in a movie like this, there are visual effects. So there's a lot of myself in this movie, and it means a lot to me. So I want to thank all of you. And for those of you who might not have gone yet, please go to the Tango Shalom, the movie page on YouTube, and actually click on the trailer starts playing as soon as you land on the page. But if you could actually click on the link and watch the trailer from the beginning, we'd love to get those analytics, obviously, because those analytics will help, hopefully, in getting the movie sold, finding a home for it. If I had my druthers, because Bern Cohen is in both The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and our film playing a Rebbe, I would love it to see it wind up on someplace like Amazon, and any analytics and reviews we'll get can always help. That said, I have some first in admission and some sad news. the admission first is that my mother has watched General Hospital since before I was born. Back into the 60s, my mom was watching General Hospital. And when I was, during the 80s, college, high school and college, thank you very much, my mother got me hooked on General Hospital. And during the 80s, this is post Luke and Laura, but during the 80s, Jack Wagner and Christina, I keep want to say Wayborn, but that's Octopussy. Christina, I forget her last name, but definitely a dream girl of mine. Christina and Jack Wagner were a couple. She played a princess, and General Hospital had this really cool spy component to it. And you had people like Finola Hughes playing Anna Devane, who was bad, then good, then bad, and Robert Scorpio. But their boss, who was also, his loyalties were always shifting, the character of Sean Donnelly. I used to call him the William Shatner of General Hospital. I loved his character. I loved him. And he passed away. And he was on General Hospital for 11 years, and my mom got me hooked on him. And here he is, John Reilly, and he died at 84. Now, I don't know if you know John Reilly, but for me, the only soap I ever watched for any length of time, and I watched it for about 5 years. And what was great was when I worked in Seattle on the weekend, so I'd come home from college and go to work, but my mom would have taped all 5 episodes of the week. And if you know anything about soap operas, the Monday episode and the Friday episode are usually significant, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are a little drawn out. So I would have all 5 hours, and I'd watch them with the judicious push of the fast forward button sometimes. But I did watch General Hospital for about 5 years, peak Sean Donnelly. And of all the celebrities that I've met out in the wild since I've lived in L.A., I think the most excited I ever got, it was about 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was at a Italian restaurant in the Grove, which is sort of an outdoor mall here in L.A., and I was at La Piazza, which is it was an Italian restaurant. I don't know if it's still there, but we were there all the time. And one night he was there with a party of his, and I was literally sitting. You know how when you sit sometimes at restaurants, your chairs are like back to each other. So I backed up to go to the bathroom or something, and I turned and looked to I banged into the guy's chair behind me, and I looked at him, and he looks up at me and I was like totally starstruck. I'm like, oh my God. You're Sean Donnelly. You're John Reilly. and he just was beaming and like, cause I was younger and I looked relatively normal and well dressed. I don't think I was the typical General Hospital fan he was used to encountering. And I said to him I said, I got to tell you, man, I'm a huge Sean Donnelly fan, and he hadn't been on General Hospital for a long time. And we had a little conversation, and I said to him, I go, dude, you are the William Shatner of General Hospital. I mean, I'm a bigger Star Trek fan, but what Shatner is to Star Trek, you are to General Hospital. And he just thought, at least he told me, he thought that was the greatest thing that he had ever heard. And I saw that he'd passed away, and I just wanted to share it today because nobody probably... It's a very interesting thing, and I don't know if this is the same for all of you out there, but there are actors that have had very long careers, but there's usually one particular character that I associate these actors with, even though they might have been in 100 different things, a lot more famous than this one particular thing that I, for whatever reason, love, and maybe no one else loves this particular thing, at least in the way that I love it. Everyone wants to think they're unique, but I just happen to love his portrayal of Sean Donnelly. And it was something that I watched for, a significant portion going out from high school into college and adulthood. And I think I really stopped watching General Hospital when I moved to Los Angeles. Because when I moved to Los Angeles, I was in no hurry to get television because I had everything set up. I had my home theater system. I'm like, I never watched TV very much, so I didn't care, and I listened to NPR and news in my car, so that's how I got my daily events. But I was always watching movies, And yet, when I saw him, I don't think, in this particular instance, meeting him was a true thrill for me. Just because I've always loved his character and loved his portrayal of that character. And I feel that way about certain actors. Like I'm a huge fan of Tequila Sunrise, the movie Tequila Sunrise. And I love Michelle Pfeiffer's character. She plays a character named Joanne Volinari. And if I ever met Michelle Pfeiffer in real life, that white gold, if I ever met her, I wouldn't talk to her about Batman Returns. I wouldn't talk to her about Grease 2. I wouldn't talk to her about What Lies Beneath, or whatever. I would talk to her about Tequila Sunrise. And I would be like, look, man, there's like 3 women in my life, 3 movie characters. She's the triptych of that. There's Grace Kelly in Rear Window. There's Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. And between the two, 1988, Michelle Pfeiffer is Joanne Volinari in Tequila Sunrise. It's just you fall in love with these particular portrayals of actors in these particular films. Like I love Angela Bassett. I love Angela Bassett. And, if I met Angela Bassett, I could wax rhapsodic about Angela Bassett. I just love Angela Bassett. But the 2 things that I would have to talk to her about, more than What's Love Got to Do with It, I would have to talk to her about Contact. But most of all, I would have to hear everything she could tell me about the making of Strange Days. So I just would. I mean, there's a particular project I'm interested in making, and one of the main characters, I want to be Angela Bassett. like I'm even storyboarding it and having her drawn into the storyboard. So that's how much I love Angela Bassett. And you have these. See, I've just given myself away. So if I ever get this project made and have to negotiate with her agent's going to be like, well, we really know that you want our client, so you're going to pay through the nose to get her, probably. But anyway, what do you do? But Sean Donnelly was one of those people. John Reilly dies. So John Reilly, a veteran soap star whose daytime credits included a long stint on General Hospital, died Saturday evening. His daughter confirmed he was 84 and no cause of death was revealed. Catelyn Riley shared the news on Instagram. John Henry Matthew Reilly, a.k.a. Jack, the brightest light in the world has gone out. Imagine the best person in the world. Now imagine that person being your dad. I'm so grateful he was mine. I'm so grateful I got to love him. I'm so grateful I made it in time to hold him and say goodbye. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do, but I know he'll be with me. I love you forever, Daddy. Well, let me tell you, Catelyn Riley, I too loved your dad, and I did get to meet him once, and he was one of the nicest, most effusive. I'll never forget the smile on his face when I told him he was the William Shatner of General Hospital. He understood exactly what I meant, and he took it in the spirit it was intended. And it was a huge thrill for me. Born in Chicago, Reilly appeared on the soap As the World Turns as Dr. Dan Stewart. He then had parts on television shows How the West Was Won, Quincy, Emmy, and Dallas. He joined General Hospital in February 1984 as Sean Donnelly. That's right when I started watching General Hospital. The run lasted 11 years and followed several story arcs from bad guy to good guy. After leaving the show, Reilly's career included voicing wisecracking Archer Hawkeye on the animated Iron Man, time as Kelly Taylor's father on Beverly Hills 90210, and several years-long stints on daytime dramas Sunset Beach and Passions. Passions, by the way, come on. What can we say about Passions? He was also briefly in spin-off General Hospital Night Shift, reprising his role as Sean Donnelly. Reilly is survived by his wife, Liz, and 3 daughters. So there he is. So Godspeed, John Reilly. You will, by some people at least, never be forgotten, which is pretty exciting. So he had a good life, and clearly he was loved. So that's always a good thing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are days away from the first MCU streaming series, WandaVision. That is correct, WandaVision. And today, an article dropped. Anthony D'Alessandro, our favorite writer who writes about all things imagination connoisseur related, dropped this article, WandaVision team on MCU connections and how the Disney series is cute until it's not. And this was posted today at 12:30 this afternoon. So let's delve into it and see what really interesting information is in this article. By the way, The article says, spoiler warning, this piece contains spoilers, but I'm going to read it anyway. Something strange is afoot in suburbia, and that's the thread which Disney Plus's upcoming Marvel series WandaVision tugs on. While Marvel has traversed the streaming space before with a number of Netflix series, i.e. The Punisher, Jessica Jones, The Defenders, Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, what makes WandaVision notable is that it's the first streaming series to employ Marvel Cinematic Universe characters as protagonists. Specifically Scarlet Witch, a.k.a. Wanda Maximoff, Elizabeth Olsen, and boyfriend Vision, Paul Bettnay. WandaVision drops its first episode this Friday, January 15th. While the Netflix Marvel shows dropped an entire season at a time, MCU boss Kevin Feige is stoked by the ongoing fan discussions, which are spurred over the series' longer run given its weekly episode release. We enjoyed watching that with The Mandalorian, and it got me excited with how we were building WandaVision, said Feige today at Zoom press conference for the Marvel series. WandaVision is a very ambitious undertaking for Marvel. It's the first time the MCU has experimented with a 30-minute comedy series format. But even more than that, WandaVision traverses a world of satire, specifically that of the 1950s to 80s sitcoms, including The Dick Van Dyke Show, Bewitched, The Brady Bunch, and Family Ties. Scarlet Witch and Vision are known in the Avengers movies for their gravitas, both of them, for the dangerous powers that they wield, not to mention their backstories. Her twin brother Quicksilver dies in Avengers Age of Ultron. Here in WandaVision, the duo are all wink-wink to the camera with a giggle at life's daily domesticated activities and mishaps. While The Mandalorian is a direct build out of Star Wars Return of the Jedi, WandaVision takes the colorful road not taken in launching what Feige bills as the launch of Phase 4 of the greater franchise. So this isn't a lead into Phase 4. This is the beginning of Phase 4, which will entail overlaps between the big screen features and the upcoming Disney Plus series. I think this is tremendous. I think this is a really great thing that they're doing. I mean, after the Infinity Saga, where are you going to go? You know, you've got 11 years of the MCU. Actually, 12 years now? Because it's 13 years because it was 2008. So you have all this time that the MCU has been building over 23 movies. Unless you do something interesting, I mean, it's just more of the same. And the fact that they're moving into the streaming world, and we know that I believe there's 9 episodes of 9 30-minute episodes. Pretty nifty, very exciting. And I don't know if this is true. I am speculating. But the fact that we are now dealing with 3 different let's call it maybe multiverse, reality warping, however it's going to work. We got WandaVision. I don't know exactly what's happening, but it's clearly reality warping in some way that I'm sure we're going to have to figure that out. And then there's, of course, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man 3, whatever that's going to be titled, that has appearances of people, well, from the different Spider-Man movies that have come out over the last 2 decades. So there is a multiverse component to all of this that could be building to something, maybe not, but it seems to me like I used to love crossovers. They do like 3 different stories in 3 different books, but it would be one story. This feels like that. Not a huge crossover like Infinity War and Endgame were, but something smaller, more self-contained. I think this is an interesting precedent they're setting. I'm looking forward to it. And again, like everything Kevin Feige does, it has its roots in the actual Marvel comics, which I really like. I think Wanda and Vision are a couple of fan favorites because their love story is so tragic, says WandaVision head writer Jack Schaefer at Sunday's junket for the series. We're opening up the stage and space for them in this domestic sphere, where she's doing the dishes and being cute. Some of the stuff you'd never see superheroes participate in, especially coming from the dramatic moments in the MCU. And in WandaVision, it's a lot of cute, until it's not. Mid-season winter 2021 premiere dates for new... Oh, that's a different one. Not unlike David Lynch's small-town worlds in Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks, there's a greater disruption lurking beneath the veneer in WandaVision, and the fun of the series comes from its slow burn in our learning about this and where the series could go. There are fanboy rumors that the show will build a bridge toward the MCU's relaunch of the X-Men series on the big screen, but that's mere speculation at this point. I'll tell you where that comes from. One of the biggest storylines with Wanda Maximoff over the last 2 decades was the House of M storyline, where Wanda, she has the power to change all of reality, and she did just that and changed the fabric of reality where mutants were dominant on Earth. And they lorded over Homo sapiens. Homo superior lorded over Homo sapiens, and that's where they're getting all of this from. And Kevin Feige, everything that comes out of the MCU has something usually to do with the comic series themselves. So maybe not so much speculation as we are led to believe. However, that might be kind of a cheat if they change reality so mutants have been here all the time. Although it's an easier fix if they wanted to do it that way. The big intriguing questions in WandaVision are, how did Scarlet and Vision wind up in an alternative universe? Last time we saw Vision, he was dead. Also, who are their two sons? Marvel lore has it they grow up to be young Avengers. Meanwhile, terrorist organization Hydra is lurking around in commercials in WandaVision. In commercials, which I love this idea. Like some big GE or Procter and Gamble advertiser. What's up with that? I can't wait to see those. Nosy intruding neighbor Agnes, played by Kathryn Hahn, is supposedly a villain. So when does she reveal her true colors inside of borrowing a cup of sugar? And we can't forget about Wanda Scarlet's friend Monica Rambeau in the show, played by Teyonah Parris. It's already been reported, and today's Zoom panel spoke about it, that Parris will reprise her role in the upcoming 2022 movie Captain Marvel 2, a clear bridge between the MCU and Phase 4 movies. Monica Rambeau, of course, played before Carol Danvers became Captain Marvel. She was Captain Marvel in the black and white outfit and her fro. I love that character. She was an Avenger. I can't wait to see, hey, maybe Captain Marvel 2 will be literal. Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau both being Captain Marvel. Who knows? We'll see. The 5-year-old version of the character was played by Akira Akbar in the 2019 movie. Said Parris today, we actually do get to learn particularly what things Monica has seen and gone through and how they shaped her life. We will actually touch a lot on that throughout the show. Added Hahn about Agnes, I'd say the same thing in regards to my character. In all those classic sitcoms, there's always the person who sits on the couch, but their personal life you never get to know anything about. Said Feige about the Hydra elements, in regards to how other truths of the show are leaking out, commercials were an idea of how we could do that. It's just a strange version of the 1960s commercial that you have to keep watching. If you've watched all the movies, you'll be able to connect what they mean. All of this sounds suitably bonkers, and I can't wait to see it. Very, very, very exciting. In building the universe of WandaVision, Schaefer and director Matt Shakman and their team assembled a Bible of quirky retro sitcom expressions, and we're keen to show how Wanda and Scarlet evolves as a woman through the generations, i.e. how she goes from wearing a dress to slacks. Despite paying great homage to classic TV shows, when WandaVision echoes contemporary storytelling, it's in the pacing. I love this. Now we're going to go through not just space, but time as well. 30 years of sitcoms represented by the show. This just sounds better and better to me. A lot of current shows right now, like Prestige series, if you watch a couple of episodes, you think it's one thing, and then in episode 4 or 5, it flips the script. That's where contemporary references came through in terms of the show's boundary pushing the genre, comments Schaefer. When asked as to where Phase 4 of the MCU ends, Feige declined to answer at today's panel. Said Feige, I hope WandaVision says, get ready for the new and the different. I hope all of our movies have said that one after the other. Certainly with the Disney Plus opportunities, it has allowed us to expand. Falcon and Winter Soldier was going to debut first last year. Creatively, we did not reshuffle, but part of having a long lead plan is having an idea of how to reshuffle. I'm not saying we were planning for a global pandemic. This required no shuffling whatsoever in terms of the creative, just in terms of the production. As is often the case, when we're thrown curveballs, the unexpected has always served the MCU well. WandaVision being our first Disney Plus series, it's so bold. Well, let me tell you, man, I'm excited. I'm really excited. This sounds great to me. It sounds suitably strange and odd, and I have no idea where it's going to go. And I like that. I like that I have no idea where this is going to go, because why should I? Isn't it much more fun when you don't know where things are going to go? I've always thought so. So I'm excited, man. I get excited for everything. I'm like I've said on the show, when it comes to pursuits of the imagination connoisseur, I'm an easy lay. Have your way with me, WandaVision. I want it to be good. But then again, also, if it's not good, I'm a tough critic. So, bring your best. I expect your A game. So hopefully we'll be getting just that. But it does sound very cool. I am very, very excited to see what is wrought here. So I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. So I'm just going to jump into this. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we have here. Let's start from the bottom. This comes from Donnie Pearson. Donnie Pearson has written a letter. Hello, Rob, mods, and fellow PGSers. Happy New Year. It's been a week or two since I've read the news about most of the Power Rangers library and the 2 English-speaking adaptations of the Metal Heroes series, the VR Troopers and the Beetleborgs, leaving Netflix for good in February. My reaction was in 4 words. Jeepers H tap dancing creepers. Yes, there's a hyphen in tap dancing. I respect the opinions of those who are like, the people of Netflix are stinking buttheads. You do not have to be a Power Ranger fan or a VR Trooper fan or a Beetleborg fan to let me know what you guys think. Thanks for reading my first letter for 2021, and may the power protect you all. Your fellow Super Sentai fan, Donnie. Well, Donnie, I feel your pain, but I want to tell you that on February 12th, the very cryptic series that I've been discussing, working on, actually since I've been working on it since August of 2019, will finally be announced. So February 12th, look out for that announcement. And that week, I'm going to have the creator of the show on along with some other people to discuss that show. But you can watch that on Netflix. So there you go. That's pretty exciting. But as a Super Sentai fan, I do feel your pain. You got to binge it. Get all that binging in now while you still can. So, but thanks for the letter. Thanks for the letter. Aaron Johnson writes in and says, Dear Rob, I thought I would comment on a pair of Harrison Ford movies that was pre-The Fugitive. They tend to have subtle differences similar to film adaptations of The Fugitive. The first one is the 1988 Roman Polanski film Frantic. By the way, one of the best uses of Grace Jones in any movie, even more so than A View to a Kill. Liver Tango, I've seen that face before, was used very well in that movie over and over again. The reason that this film seems to be in that pre-fugitive category is because there's every possible piece of evidence that puts this film as a good match. A doctor gets framed for what is going on, and with a one-armed man shenanigans, the wife in Frantic goes missing, whereas the fugitive, the wife is attacked. So Ford's character in Frantic, Dr. Richard Walker, does right that Richard Kimball in the 1993 The Fugitive doesn't do correctly. He does investigating with a few clues, and when Richard Walker discovers a drunk forcing his wife into a car, he picks up a suitcase that was left by his wife and finds a phone number that may be a lead. This is one of the things that separates this film from The Fugitive because as the story of the film unfolds, it drifts off into self-parody. Later, Richard Walker, Harrison Ford, gets help from a young woman named Michelle, played by the Emmanuel Sanger, who's great. And all throughout the rest of the film, Walker and the young woman put in a cat and mouse game to try and solve where Dr. Walker's wife is. She was hired to carry the suitcase, doesn't know what's in it, but she wants 10,000 francs that she's promised. This is how far-fetched half the film is. It's more likable than half of The Fugitive, but the fact is this film could have done better when it comes to balancing out what is going on in the story and fixing some of the issues and parts of the subplots. There's simply no explanation for the viewer as to how Walker's wife managed to go missing, nor the fact that there isn't some sort of help for Richard Walker and Michelle to outsmart the villains of the film, as a polar opposite to what happens in The Fugitive when Richard Kimball runs from the cops and doesn't get enough help to protect himself from Sam Gerard, Tommy Lee Jones. But still, Frantic as a film is a good thriller, and that the audience tends to figure out what goes on. Now, moving along, the second pre-Fugitive film is the 1990 Alan J. Pakula directed film Presumed Innocent. Man, do I love this movie. I just want to say, that's me editorializing. The reason Presumed Innocent seems to have a fugitive-like qualities differently, Presumed Innocent at its core fundamentals are also like pre-The Fugitive, but from the courtroom side of things. There are a lot of people in this movie. The actors from Die Hard 1 and 2, Bonnie Bedelia as Barbara Savage, the wife of Harrison Ford's Rusty Savage, Brian Dennehy, the same Brian Dennehy who played Teasel in Rambo First Blood, and Cobb in Silverado. More on both of these films later in separate letters. By the way, movies I really like. Presumed Innocent is based on a novel by Scott Turow, which the viewer's first clue for the film that separates this film from The Fugitive is that Brian Dennehy plays a state attorney that assigns Harrison Ford's character, an assistant state attorney, to a case about a murder involving a young woman played by Greta Scacchi, who is beautiful. The rest of the film, much like The Fugitive, is all investigative stuff, which could be interesting, though what makes it tricky is when Dennehy's character faces an election. In a nutshell, the film does have its moments. By the way, it's got one of the great conclusions of any legal thriller ever, just so you know. So in conclusion, both of these films are great, probably equals as great as The Fugitive, but well worth comparing. My thought for you, Rob, and the thought for the PGS is, what are your favorite Harrison Ford movies? Thanks for listening. Sincerely, Aaron Johnson. Well, Aaron, thank you for that. I think my favorite Harrison Ford movie that does not get enough love as far as I'm concerned is The Mosquito Coast. Peter Weir's The Mosquito Coast, based on the novel. One of my favorite Harrison Ford performances. I think maybe even his best performance on camera. Presumed Innocent is another favorite of mine as well. But yeah, big fan. But Mosquito Coast is mine. Thanks for writing in. That's a good letter. Arnold Schwarzenegger writes in and says, I hope you're well. The Terminator is back. Now, I'm currently listening to the recorded podcast regarding Godzilla and King Kong appearing day and date with HBO Max. I'm glad you're listening to the podcast. I'm glad that the bond between Warner Brothers and Legendary is being mended. I just hope this progress means that Dune will also appear on HBO Max at the same time. I don't know. Speaking of which, I did post a letter around Christmas time, but I think it got backlogged with all the other letters, and so it was never read, but it doesn't matter. It was in regards to an article I published. Well, if I don't read your article, look on the website, theburnettwork.net, because it will probably wind up there. This article talks about all the reasons why I believe that a theatrical-only release will be detrimental to Dune, whereas HBO Max can offer various advantages and actually improves chances of Dune receiving a sequel. Though I still wish that they filmed the sequel back-to-back with the first film. I will never understand why they didn't. From what I understand, there was to be 3 Dune movies. Dune, Dune Prophet, and Dune Messiah. And it would tell the Paul Atreides story, which doesn't end well for a lot of people, but still great stuff. And I think they should have done that. But there you go. Most aspects of the article is something which we've already discussed, such as the nature of the source material not being something which attracts the mass audience to the cinemas, whereas HBO Max will either encourage more people to watch it, one way or the other. I can talk forever in this letter about all the reasons, but I feel like you already read and discussed all of them prior to this letter, and this comprehensive article will talk about what I want to talk about anyway, so the article is as follows. Well, actually, that's not part of the link. Let me put this in the live chat. So, here you go. I'm putting it in the live chat. So if you want to read that article, ladies and gentlemen, it is there. And Rob, I remember you told us that you formerly worked for Warner Brothers, I think around 20 years ago. Oh, it was a lot longer than that. If you happen to have some contacts over at Legendary, let's just say they might require a little persuasion, this article, to encourage them to keep the current release strategy. In other news, I read a Medium article titled The Biggest Films of the Year Were Direct to SVOD by Brandon Brazier on behalf of the analytical company Antenna, which states that Wonder Woman 84 had the highest subscription acquisition of any 2020 movie, so that was interesting. I thought it was supposed to be Soul, but apparently not. Anyhow, I will leave you to it. Thank you for reading the letter, and I hope you have a great and wonderful day, both to you and your family. I'll be back. Kind regards, the Terminator. Well, sir, I will definitely be reading that article. That sounds interesting. I haven't read it. Maybe it's worth sharing tomorrow on Robservations. So that's pretty exciting. This one comes from Paul in Long Beach. Paul in Long Beach says, so I had a couple of jokes written. Pretty good, but irrelevant now. Hey, Rob, so I guess 2020 called on Wednesday and asked if it can stick around for a couple of weeks. You have my number, Rob. Can you do me a favor? Call me on January 21st and wake me up, will you? I need a nap. Seriously, though, sarcasm is hard. Although I am intrigued by your Smithsonian caper, I think you can count me in, but only if I get the ruby slippers and Fonzie's jacket. You know, my friend, I've tried to be lighthearted this year. I've tried to keep looking at the better nature of us. I've been sarcastic, irreverent, and mostly of decent nature as tragedy happened day after day. No more. Now I'm embarrassed, and even more, I'm pissed off. So when they announced the 4,000 or so Americans whom died today of COVID, count my brother Brian among them. During the night, he died in his bed right next door to you, Rob, in Arcadia. Diagnosed on Sunday, dead on Friday. He was 56 years old. He leaves behind 2 children and 2 grandchildren. I've never told this to the Post-Geek Singularity before, but his first grandchild, her name is Leia. So, yeah, no more joking around. If they want to name the vaccine hydrochloroquine 2, Lysol Boogaloo, I'll be fine with it. Just get it effing done. And to those that refuse to act like responsible adults, you are third grade pieces of dog feces, and that is how you will be remembered by history. I could go on, Rob, but I won't. I guess now I have other stuff to do. Thanks, America. We're number one. Cheers, brother, Paul. Well, Paul, you've been a great friend of the channel. I'm very sorry for your loss, sir. I mean that sincerely. It's not something that should have happened, and I hope I can only give all my best to you and your family. I'm very sorry for your loss. I personally had somebody that died right after they got out of the hospital being treated for COVID, and I think the thing that's like any disease, I think what's so insidious about this is a person is really vibrant and they're who they are, and then they're brought, the people that are really affected by this disease, it's an insidious disease. It's far worse than the flu, and they're cut down, and it happens very quickly, like you said. So all I can do is offer my sympathy, and I hope that you and your family are there for one another. And I'm very sorry to hear about your brother. It's what a year 2020 was. Mike F is here. Mike F says, "Hi, Rob, and to the Post-Geek Singularity. First of all, I want to say that I love the trailer for Tango Shalom. Why, thank you. It looks like a fun watch and a crowd pleaser, if you ask me. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I hope you'll get to find a worldwide distributor. Me too. I'm calling out Netflix, Amazon, or Apple TV to pick it up. I mean, people who worked on my Big Fat Greek Wedding and Free Enterprise are involved, and Lainey Kazan is part of the cast. Who doesn't want to pick it up? I don't know, man. Anyways, I heard you mention on the John Campea show that you're watching The Undoing. Not anymore because we finished it, which is what I'm going to talk about in this letter. I like the show a lot. Is it as good as the best shows in the current peak TV era? Well, not exactly, but it's an entertaining limited series to watch. I'm a sucker for murder mysteries, so I'm already on board with this when HBO announced the project. And then you have Nicole Kidman. I'm game for anything she's involved in. And then they have Hugh Grant, who's having some sort of renaissance in his career with Florence Foster Jenkins, Paddington 2, A Very English Scandal, The Gentleman, this show, and even Death to 2020. To some extent, he's getting the best roles nowadays of his career. He always brings it. Yeah, I think About a Boy is my favorite of his roles, but I'm a Hugh Grant fan through and through. I like the show because of the performances by the cast. They were all great. Plus, the mystery was intriguing to me. I keep on guessing who killed Elena, and I have theories. I know that the finale was kind of divisive, but I actually liked the resolution because it made sense, and there's almost nothing to poke holes in. I also like Suzanne Bier's direction and David E. Kelly's writing. As for the performances, Nicole Kidman was wonderful as usual. I love hearing her sing Dream a Little Dream of Me in the opening credits. I thought Hugh Grant gave one of the best performances of his career. Noah Jupe was great. Donald Sutherland knows how to deliver meaty lines. Lily Rabe was also good, even though I wish she had more scenes. Edgar Ramirez's character didn't develop much, but it's great to see him there. But the MVP for me is Noma. Oh, man. Oh, yes. I was talking about this the other day, but the MVP for me is Noma. I can't. It's Dumenzwini, who played the lawyer Haley Fitzgerald. Wow, she was fantastic. She delivers, I think, my favorite performance of the year. Noma, and you spell that last name Dumezweni. Dumenzwini? I think so, Dumenzwini. An unbelievable performance. I hope she wins Best Supporting Actor. Do they already have the Emmys? Could she possibly? She was so good. I don't remember ever seeing her in something that she was that. I mean, I just didn't know her. I know she'd been in she didn't even been in, I think, Doctor Who, but like this performance, she was fantastic. She should. This is what I'm back to your letter now. She was fantastic. She stood out in her scenes, and I really want to see her on more roles in film and TV. It was reported recently that she's going to be a part of the Little Mermaid live-action film, so that's exciting. I mean, she is an amazing actress. Anyway, thank you for reading this letter. I want to hear your thoughts more regarding the show, especially on the finale. If you've seen it already, stay safe and live long and prosper. I really liked The Undoing. So did Elizabeth. I mean, I kind of guessed how it was going to end because I didn't see it, but I did like it. It reminded me of Malice. You asked me if I have a God complex. When people are in there praying, so their loved ones, who do you think they're praying to? I liked it a lot. I thought it was great. It wasn't. Here's the thing. The storyline wasn't this like end all be all twists and turns, but it was very satisfying. You know what I felt? I equated it to that it was based on a book, and I read a lot of that kind of fiction. Like I read whether it's Scott Turow or John Grisham or even when my beloved James Lee Burke, the Dave Robichaux novels, or reading Andrew Vox's series about Burke. The books might not all be like these A-list books, but as long as they're fulfilling, they feel like you've sat down and had a good meal. I felt The Undoing, it was only 6 episodes long. It had great peril. Every episode was really interesting. I felt like it was just a very satisfying watch. Was it the best thing I'd ever seen on TV? No. But for what it was, I thought it was peak what it was. Murder mystery miniseries. I thought it was great. I loved it. This one comes from Andrea Valentova. What a cool name. Andrea Valentova. We've heard from Andrea before. I don't know if it's Andrea or Andrea, but I just imagine it is. Andrea Valentova. What a great name, like right out of a spy thriller. Love it. Hi, Rob. Greetings from the Czech Republic again. I must admit, I was surprised I did not hear more lengthy rant from you about the Discovery finale. But I understand you don't want to waste your breath anymore. I have also listened to the roundtable discussion on Midnight's Edge where they speculated that this was also possibly a series finale. It kind of felt like it. There was no big storyline unclosed, no cliffhanger. Maybe CBS pulled the plug on it as they don't have finances or sponsors for this extremely expensive show anymore. What do you think? Have you heard anything? I haven't heard anything. Live long and prosper, Andrea. I have not heard anything. All I've heard about was I have read script pages from the first episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Not enough to know much about it other than the fact that Captain Pike is riding his horse. But the pages I wrote did not mention the horse's name is Tango. Maybe it's not the same horse. I don't know. But anyway, what I read was rather nondescript, but I don't know. I've heard that Star Trek Discovery seasons 4 and 5 were in fact renewed together, and whether they're going to be shot back to back as a season or not, I know that insurance has been taken out and they've blocked out time, so I don't know much more about it other than that. But I was not impressed. Unfortunately, I wish I was, but I really hated season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. I really did. And I feel bad about how much I hated it because I actually went into it looking forward to like maybe this change in direction will be good for them. They need people who understand how to write a science fiction television show. Michelle Paradise, the fact that she was show running the show, I don't think there's somebody more unqualified to run a Star Trek series, as evidenced by her season finale that she penned. Stubble McShave is here. Stubble says, "Hi, Rob. You posed the question the other day concerning the differences between the ordinary world and the movie world." Yes, and I've been thinking about it ever since. First of all, from now on, I will refer to our ordinary world as a mundane world, as opposed to the movie world. That's fair. I thought a bit about this, and I think I've managed to draw some conclusions. I started by acknowledging that some directors are working completely in the mundane world, while other works completely in movie world. An example of those that always work in the mundane world would be people like Woody Allen. I agree with that. Although, when he does things like Midnight in Paris, he's not. There's no longer the mundane. He's still a huge fantasy component. So I think Woody Allen can go between the two if he wants to. Actually, I think he's gone through that a lot, to be honest. Uh-oh. Something's on my keyboard. Things are always falling on my desk here, and I have to move them. But this is interesting. I'm curious to see where we're going to go with this. An example of a director that's always working in the movie world would be someone like Tim Burton. Totally agree. And then there are directors that do movies in both the mundane world and the movie world. The first one that comes to mind is Steven Spielberg. He has done mundane world movies like Munich, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, Amistad, Lincoln, and The Terminal. I would also say that Empire of the Sun as well. They're all set in the mundane world, and except for The Terminal, they all depict real events in history. But he's also made a lot of movies set in the movie world. Examples would be E.T., Hook, and the Indiana Jones movies. Apart from this, he's Jurassic Park. Apart from this, he's also made two movies that has many similarities, but where one is set in the mundane world and one is set in the movie world. Okay, I'm speaking of Jaws and Jurassic Park. Jaws is firmly set in our mundane world. It is. It's established with a lot of mundane things happening. The interactions between Roy Scheider and his family does a lot to establish this sense of us being in the mundane world, and there's nothing that comes later on in the movie that breaks us away from that. Jurassic Park has many of the same beats as Jaws, but there's nothing as concrete as Jaws that would bring us back down to the mundane world. They could have shifted the tone a little bit and had some scenes to establish the mundane world and still have dinosaurs in the movie if they had done it a certain way. I also consider the Bond franchise. In our minds, Bond's is firmly set in movie world. But I would argue that the first Bond movie, Dr. No, is actually set in the mundane world. I would totally agree with that. I started to wonder about that. What is it with the other Bond movies that makes them feel as if they're set in movie world? I think that I've come up with part of the answer. I think that the answer is that you introduce a fantastical or larger-than-life element and then confirm it to the viewer with an over-the-top piece of music. Dr. No had no larger-than-life elements, and its theme music was the song Three Blind Mice, which is not over the top, but rather a nice little reggae-inspired song. From the next movie forward in the franchise, there would often be some over-the-top thing happening in the beginning, followed by a rousing piece of music that confirmed it was larger than life. In your example with Back to the Future, where we see the home of an eccentric inventor, it's followed by Marty skateboarding while the song Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News is blasting in the background. Again, the over-the-top song confirms it's fantastical. If we hadn't had that song, we might have dismissed the huge speaker in the beginning as an eccentricity. But no, the song confirms that we're in for a strange and awesome ride. The Indiana Jones movies could possibly never have been pulled down into the mundane world, but if you had a more subdued score, they might have pulled it off, at least in the beginning. It would, however, have been a very strange movie and probably not particularly good. When I think of movies like Titanic, I think there is a form of hybrid of the movie world and the mundane. Absolutely, 100% there is. The movie is more or less two different movies stitched together. It's a fantastical costume drama half the movie and a very real survival movie in the second half. This is also reflected in the score. We never get that roaring, fantastical Titanic theme after the iceberg hits. When the iceberg hits, we go from movie world and enter mundane world. We don't really hear that theme again until the end of the movie, where we once again enter movie world. I'm not sure if my analysis of Titanic is correct, but those were my initial thoughts. I agree with you. So what do you think of my reasoning? Is the secret to establish something in movie world that you introduce something strange or larger-than-life elements and confirm them with a score that ferments the fantastical nature of what it is you're about to watch in the mind of the viewer? Whatever it is, you need to establish it right at the beginning. I think it's hard to change the world from mundane to movie world or vice versa in the middle of a movie. You literally need an iceberg to do it. Thanks, Stubble. Well, Stubble, I got to tell you, I've been thinking about this a lot because, because of this show, I quantify ideas that I've had in my mind for a long time. And the difference between movie world, or as you put it, mundane world, movie world and mundane world is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And, for instance, I think that Woody Allen's movies like Manhattan, even Annie Hall, even though there's like the Marshall McLuhan scene like that, Annie Hall and Manhattan are firmly in the real world. And then he's got sort of hybrid movies. Even when aliens show up in Stardust Memories, I still feel that most of what we're seeing is in mundane world, but also not really. I would think Stardust Memories is kind of a hybrid. But I think the important thing The real difference between movie world and mundane world is the filmmaker. The filmmaker must understand and really know what world that they're working in, because you don't want the tone of it all to get muddled. And when you're watching a movie like, I think Tootsie is a movie that kind of skirts that line. It's in mundane world and it's in movie world, but it works. And it's something I've been thinking a lot about, because this project that I've wanted to make for a long time, it is not in mundane world. It is in movie world, but a realistic version of movie world that gets completely over the top fantastical by the end, but it still has to have deep roots in the mundane to make it work. Otherwise it won't work. So it's very interesting. I think that I've been having a lot of fun trying to come to grips with what I think about all of this. So to me, it's quite interesting. Quite interesting. At least I think so. Maybe some people don't. Lubna Khan is here. Lubna Khan. Love it when she writes in. Hello. A few more things we watched late last year that I enjoyed. Kung Fu Panda 2. Charming, endearing, and unexpectedly moving. Beauty and the Beast. This is the French film with Léa Seydoux and Vincent Cassel, filled with a sense of wonder and enchantment that a fairy tale ought. Also gorgeous to look at. Under the Greenwood Tree, a BBC adaptation of the Thomas Hardy novel. Keely Hawes plays the village school mistress with 3 very different suitors. This is not one of those Hardy stories where whoever does not end up dead lives miserably ever after, unnatural as it feels to use the words such as cozy and comfortable in conjunction with the work of Mr. Hardy. 'Tis quite true. He must have felt it so himself, as years later he added a preface to the book essentially apologizing for this. Note, I do like the book, but my famous Thomas Hardy novel is actually Far from the Madding Crowd. And that was a good movie, too. Lubna. P.S. Apropos to It's a Wonderful Life, I just wanted to mention 2 other James Stewart films that I love, Harvey and The Shop Around the Corner. I believe The Shop Around the Corner was recently released on Blu-ray as well, and Harvey's on Blu-ray, too. So that's pretty exciting. Now, this letter comes from our own sometime moderator, and I guess you'd call him maybe one of the grand poobahs of the channel, my good friend Greg Smith, who writes in, our moderator Greg Smith, the man who started the show. If you watched the very first episode of Robservations, before it was a live show, he is the star of it. Hi, Rob. The events of this week and the resulting deplatforming of the U.S. outgoing administration got me thinking about cancel culture. There are some who are upset by the numerous social media platforms cutting off the outgoing president's access to his followers, and they've been calling this a case of cancel culture. Setting aside the false accusations of First Amendment violations, which are absurd, they are, it's important to remember the outgoing administration has at its disposal an official press briefing room, a press secretary, although she's not looking too well these days, a detail of White House press pool reporters at the ready, and the world's ear if they have something useful to say, which is to say that they still have access to the public if they want to use it. Adding to the fallout is many in the post-White House job market saying, no thanks, we're not hiring. On Thursday, Forbes business writer Randall Lane published a piece which said in part, let it be known to the business world, hire any of Trump's fellow fabulists above and Forbes will assume that everything your company or firm talks about is a lie. So it seems like there is a growing cancellation of the outgoing president, his family, and associates. But is it cancel culture? Or is this simply the consequences of attempting to overturn the largest defeat of an incumbent in the history of our country? It got me wondering about the idea of cancel culture in a new way, because in this case, the reactions to the narrowly failed coup seem indisputably justified, and that's not always the case. Whether the various accounts were closed for terms of service violations, criminal incitation, or both, I agree with these actions. We've heard of many cases where it wasn't justified, so I'm trying to decide where the line is, and I'm interested in your thoughts. Well, I've seen a couple of YouTube pundits that are they're staunch Republicans that have flat out said the president is in fact guilty of using his platform, his pre-recorded message basically was inciting violence, taking one side against another. And I think, look, the First Amendment says that the government will not prevent speech. The government's not preventing speech. Like you pointed out, President Trump has a lot of ways to talk if he wants to talk. But these other platforms, it's fair game. And look, I think the worst thing for me about all of this is so far there has been a falsehood perpetrated against the American people. And that falsehood is that there is evidence of election tampering of some kind. There has been no evidence presented. And yet what I think is sad is there's now long-lasting damage that has been done. There are people that are going to go into the Biden administration, a lot of Americans, never accepting Biden as their president because there was so much doubt sown by this previous administration without evidence presented. How many courts had to throw out these challenges? There was just, and here's the thing. I don't think in the history of our nation has our electoral process, the very basis, the voting process, been as disrupted as it was by our own current administration. And that's dangerous. That's more dangerous. I mean, when you have a foreign enemy, you can point to that foreign enemy and go, they're dangerous. But when you have forces inside this country that are contesting an election, look, I'm all for, you don't want elections being contested, but allegations aren't proof. You have to prove these things, and there wasn't any. There's no credible proof that our elections were overthrown or somehow tampered with. I mean, there's ongoing Russian hacking that's been going on, is still going on now, that is provable. But, everyone's like, oh, Dominion things were hacked. I mean, here's the thing. They're not just alleging, and remember, it's not just that the election was somehow fraudulent. It's that there is a widespread Democratic conspiracy that spreads from everybody that makes the voting machines to every level of government that somehow, and I'd really like to know where the Democratic Party that could pull this off is, but the Democratic Party, with the help of God knows how many other people in the private sector, conspired to steal this election for Joe Biden. Well, let's take it back to Occam's razor. How about the fact that our economy is trashed and we're still in the middle of a global pandemic that our administration, led by Donald Trump, denied existed? All you have to do is go back and watch the tape. Everybody's trying to, it's always, but what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? If you go and watch this administration's response to this COVID pandemic, they didn't respond. They said it was a hoax. This isn't me playing partisan politics. You just go watch the tapes. We're better than this. America should be at the forefront of all of this kind of thing. We should know about what's going on. And I closed the borders to China. Well, unfortunately, when you live on a planet where people are traveling to and fro all the time from everywhere, closing one border isn't enough. And as we know, on the Eastern Seaboard, a lot of this came through Europe, which also came through China, or came from China. And it's the continual gaslighting of the American people. By the way, all sides, and I find it very disconcerting where we are politically on both sides, everywhere. We seem, common sense seems to have abandoned us. Reason seems to have abandoned us, clear thinking, and I don't know why. And there's blame to go around on all sides. But President Trump was inciting, he incited all of this. He never came out and said the things he should have said over the last year. He just didn't do it. He didn't do it. And I think when people are doing that, if you are saying things that are untrue, that are designed to foment a base or whatever you have, to action that is detrimental to some. 5 people died at the Capitol. 5 people died. That's more people than died in Benghazi. And how long did Hillary Clinton have to testify about that? Or at least Americans. I mean, whether you're political or not, it's a tough one. And the fact that we're going to have to be dealing with people disbelieving this election and all elections what was sown into this country now more than ever before is doubt about our very political process. And that's the one thing that makes us different from any other government that the world has ever seen. And the fact that the very basis of this, this kind of dissent, even if the Russians and the Chinese only dream of doing what the Trump administration did to this country over the last 2 months, since the election and lead up to the election. And it is something that's going to damage this country for a long time to come. That, to me, isn't cancel culture. That, to me, is the consequences of saying falsehoods and untruths. And by the way, I mean, what's interesting is some of my favorite movies, like The Manchurian Candidate. We saw they've made movies about this exact same thing. In that case, it was communists. Senator Eisling running for president. Let me tell you how many communists there are in the United States government. How many communists are there? Wow, there were 8. What is that right number? There are 10 No, there's 15 communists in the American government. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen this. Manchurian Candidate, Facing the Crowd. They've been making movies about this for 60, 70 years. So for me, it's not even about what cancel culture is, which I think is different. Cancel culture is when you are being attacked because of your point of view, and your point of view might have very valid concerns or very valid points, and it might be true, but there are people that just don't like what you have to say. Saying things that people don't like is different than if you are spreading falsehoods. And I think with cancel culture, there are people that just don't like you personally, and they pile on with other people and try and sow dissent or go after you because they want your voice silenced. It's different than if your voice is flat out lying or spreading falsehoods. There's a big difference. So that's kind of that's kind of the way I see it. Let's see. Ooh, there's a great political letter. I wonder if I should read it. I don't know. Maybe. CG is here. CG is just CG. Hey, Rob, I've been listening to you for a long time. Way back before COVID, which feels like a lifetime ago now. It does, doesn't it? I've always wanted to write in, especially because it doesn't seem like you have near enough women writers. I do not. I have to tell you, my female audience floats around now. It started out even smaller, 6-7%, if I'm lucky. I feel like we should contribute more to the conversation, but I can never think of anything particularly enlightening to add. After listening to your show tonight, I did go over and watch the trailer for Tango Shalom. I wanted to say congratulations and thank you for contributing something that looks positive and uplifting to the world in these trying times. Just watching the trailer brought a ray of sunshine to a somewhat gray week. I appreciate that. Tango Shalom is a family movie. There's not even a swear word in it. It's a sweet family movie. It really is. It feels like a throwback to a different era. And I'm always surprised when I look at it. I'm like, I can't believe I worked on this movie for so long and made it as sweet as it is. But I appreciate you saying so. I've always wanted to thank you for not being afraid to talk about the hard stuff sometimes on your show. I know you steer clear of politics, but you're not afraid of them either. I find it comforting that you're not afraid to talk about the elephants in the room and allow others to respectfully disagree. I even enjoyed it immensely when you shared how your mom was voting in the election, because my mom voted the same way and I gained some insights. I fear that until we as a nation can sit down in the figurative room again together and talk freely about our differences of political thought, we will never regain our cultural heritage. That is what has always made America great. The ability to somehow disagree about what we believe and yet still be united. I could not agree with you more, CG. I find one of the most stressful parts of today's world to be that no one can seem to publicly talk about how they really feel anymore unless it's in a disruptive context. Even our sci-fi, which was created specifically to explore the uncomfortable what-ifs of both the scientific and political landscapes has become so watered down. My God, thank you for saying that. I wonder if it has become this way so that audiences are not made to be uncomfortable or even put at risk of compromising their belief systems. Is there fear that entertainment will be labeled too political just as media has been? It is for this reason that we are wading into such shallow waters with new Star Treks and Star Wars, etc. I'm interested in your thoughts. Plus, perhaps I missed this episode. Did you see George Clooney's movie on Netflix? I did. What did you think? I guess I had more to say than I realized. Sorry, it's so long. Not at all. Thanks again for keeping us company through it all. Your virtual friend, CG. Well, CG, first of all, thank you for writing in. Yeah, I would love to have more female writers in this show. But I have to say, I mean, the difference in fandom, what's interesting is when I grew up, there were very few women in fandom. There was some in science fiction literary circles. Like when I'd go to like NorwestCon or even the World Cons, there were a lot more females at those conventions than there were at, say, Comic Cons, although that's really changed. But I do think that men and women come at fandom from different directions. And I think that what's really great is that there's more women in fandom and more female creators than ever before, which I think is tremendous. But I really would like to have more female fans, but and more, even if they're not fans, I'd love to have more letters like the ones you just wrote in. So thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, and I completely agree with you. We have to learn to talk to one another. You know, I was on a stream last night with a lot of people that are very divisive in the community, but there are always people that have shown me, even though I think I've said this before, but Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, he and I are very far apart in our political ideals. However, when we get together, we can have great conversations because, as I've said, we're bonded together by our fandom. And I know that there are people that criticize me for going over and talking to people that they deem, for whatever reason, they've got problems with those people. And my whole thing is that I don't necessarily feel I have to, but I enjoy having conversations with people that I am maybe ideologically opposed to, or because I learn. And I think that anybody should be able to have healthy discourse, you know. And so I was on the show yesterday. I was invited by Echo Base Network. They reached out to me when they were working on their first documentary last year, and they made a documentary on Disney's sequel trilogy and the fan reaction to it. And they asked me to take a look at early cuts of it and give them notes, which I thought was pretty ballsy. And I became friends with them, and now they've reached 15,000 subscribers, and they invited me onto a stream yesterday. I was flattered. And I was on there with Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers and Star Wars Theory and Gary, Nerdrotic, Gary Beekler. And I know that there were a lot of people that look at that and go, Rob, why do you hang out with the Tom from Midnight's Edge? Why do you hang out with those Fandom Menace people? And I'm like, well, because at our core, we're all fans. We're all of it stems out of our love of fandom. And, you know, if all I did was talk about Star Trek Discovery all the time, people would say that, oh, you're part of those Fandom Menace people. And I'm like, yeah, but the everybody from the Fandom Menace, whoever I've streamed with, has been nothing but nice and cordial to me, you know, for 2 years. And they invite me on shows. They let me go do things. I mean, Star Wars Theory, who has over 2 million followers, is doing a stream today to raise money for St. Jude. He can actually work. You can work it now where whenever somebody sends you super chats or tips, they go right to the person that you're doing the donating to, which is really cool that the mechanisms exist to now do that. It makes it easier to donate to charities and things. And, you know, I'd never met Star Wars Theory. I was a fan of his movie, but he was a really nice guy. And he obviously has been in the news over the last week or two. And I thought a very satisfying stream with a lot of compelling talk. So I appreciate that. I mean, the fact is, I don't understand why people can't talk to one another. I don't understand why if I go on a channel, people are like, well, Rob, you're so open-minded. Why'd you go on that person's channel? And I'm like, it is not my job to police other people. It's also, when I go on someone else's channel, I am not necessarily endorsing that person or their channel. I'm endorsing my ability to go talk to people of all shapes, size, colors, creeds, and ideological persuasions. That's what this channel is literally all about. The Burnettwork and Robservations is all about being able to, you should be able to, assuming someone's not going to use deadly force and cut your head off or something, you should be able to go anywhere and talk with anybody about anything, as long as you're not trampling on the rights of someone else to do the same. So I really appreciate you pointing that out, and I'm glad you're here. Please write in more. Please write in more, and it's great to have more women write into the channel, because I agree. Dean Mikitich writes in and says, "Hey, Rob and the PGS, so Paramount has announced they're going to release all the Indiana Jones films in 4K later in the year. We also know that Kathleen Kennedy has Indy 5 in pre-production, and this has me wondering, will Disney be releasing the film or will Paramount?" Disney will be releasing the film because Disney bought Lucasfilm. Paramount doesn't have, I think they don't have any, their deal, probably their home video deal, extends to the Raiders films, but any new films would be Disney. So Disney will be releasing Indy 5. I know Lucas retained the rights to Indy just like he did with Star Wars, but with Disney buying Lucasfilm, they now hold the IP rights, but does the deal with Paramount stay in place for all future Indy films? That's interesting. I don't know. I would imagine not. I know Fox owned the distribution rights to the original and prequel trilogy, but they did not release the sequel trilogy, so I'm not sure if Paramount will get to release Indy 5. I also know that Fox retained the distribution rights to both Star Wars trilogies when Lucasfilm was bought by Disney, and Disney only owns the IP and distribution rights now due to buying 20th Century Fox out last year. So is the distribution deal with Paramount, does it stay in place, or does Disney have to buy the distribution rights off Paramount? If they do, and Paramount was to say, no, we will carry on distributing all future indie films, what does that mean for Disney? Peace and long life. Well, Dean, I don't know the answer to this. I would assume that maybe Paramount has some kind of distribution deal in place. But if they don't, if the sale of Fox and the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney has changed that, then it might change. But if Paramount is going to release the Indiana Jones movies on 4K, then they still have some kind of a distribution plan in place. I don't know if it would appeal, or if it would what is the word? Not appeal. If it if it's not if it covers. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on that. Maybe I'm getting old, but if it covers I just don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But yes, I do not know. Concerned viewer. This is an interesting one, folks. Rob, this is my first letter to the channel, and I take no joy in writing it. I was shocked and extremely disappointed to see you on the Echo Base Network live stream Saturday night. There were some participants that I don't know much about. However, I am fully aware of Ethan Van Sciver and Jeremy of Geeks and Gamers, and the things that they say and the beliefs they support. Your continued desire to associate with these people baffles me. And here's one of the biggest problems I have with this. When you associate with these people, your viewers and followers are associating with them by extension. The people who have participated in the short film competition are associating with them. The people who participate in the short story competition will be associating with them. Okay, well, I'm going to finish your letter. I do not want to associate with them. I'm sure you get more subscribers out of these guest appearances, but at what cost? I know you want to believe in the best in people. That's a nice thought, but it's also a bit naive. You have said that they've always been nice to you. That's because they're trying to recruit you and your fans. All of them have way more subscribers than I do, just so you know. I do not want to be recruited by them. This is extremely troubling, particularly after the events of last week at the Capitol building. In the past, your association with Jeremy has prevented me from clicking the join button or purchasing merchandising from your store. And while, for the moment, I will continue to watch your show, I don't know for how much longer I will do so if you continue to associate with these people. An extremely disappointed viewer. Well concerned. I have to ask you this. So the Echo Base Network people who asked me to be on that stream, and I said yes to celebrate their subscription, their subscriber base, they came to me a year ago and asked for my help in making a film. And I did. And I thought what they were doing, I tried to help them make their film better. I think it was better, and they even said it on the live stream last night. But I would ask you this. Why is it if I go and I'm on a channel, my viewers are not going to be recruited by anybody? If you choose to go be a part of someone else's channel, that's your business. But I think I find it troubling that you're saying that anybody who participates in a film festival on my channel is somehow associating with anybody else on another channel. I don't think that's true, and I also don't think that's a really fair assessment to make with anybody else. I mean, look, you know, the world is full of all different kinds of people. And as I learned when I worked in retail, for instance, when I was a Laserdisc retailer or a video retailer, from 1980 to 1988, I worked with the public in retail and home video. And all kinds of people came into my stores. And I learned from a very young age that I was dealing with all different kinds of the public. I never thought that whoever came into my store, everybody was welcome. Actually, the stores I worked in, they weren't my stores. I was an employee of the stores. But I don't think that people would judge our store based on who came in and rented movies. At least I would hope not. Our desire was to serve everyone. And when I go and talk to somebody, I don't necessarily think that is me giving any kind of approval to the people that I'm talking to. I'm just making an appearance on a channel. And what I'm trying to do is bring my own ethos or my own belief system into that arena. And as a matter of fact, for the most part, I've had people say to me when I've gone on and had these conversations on these various channels that the discourse they feel was valuable, you know. And I if you don't like I'd never been on a stream with Ethan Van Sciver before. I'd never spoken to him before until last night. And even then, you know, I said I admire what Ethan Van Sciver did about taking his own as an artist, and by the way, I have a lot of Ethan Van Sciver's work on I own it, but you know, for years ago I've been buying stuff that he did. And I think that the time that I was on that stream last night, I felt it was worthwhile. And I felt at least that in going on that channel, by example, I set an example of who I am and who I think the people that watch this channel are. And I think that's important. I think that, if anything, I mean, I'm not putting myself in some, I don't want to put myself on my own pedestal, but when I go places, when I go out into the world, I am an ambassador of what I believe. And while I have been very guilty many, many times of not living up to those ideals for various reasons, I do try. And I think that anybody that listens to me for any length of time, if I were not to go talk to people, if there would be people, look, would I go appear on I don't know. I don't know where my line would be drawn, but I would try. I'm always trying to go and lead by example. And I know that a lot of people don't like certain individuals, but I cannot say that I'm not going to go talk to somebody. Look, I cannot. If somebody's going to submit a film to me and on my channel, that's between them, me, and the channel. I don't think that what I do, I'm just providing the film festival. And if I'm going to go talk to somebody, I'm going to try and the very same ideals that led me to want to have a film festival in the first place, I'm trying to bring out into the world. And I'm hoping that maybe people will come to this channel. And I guess because I've always dealt with all kinds of people in my life. And as I said, when I worked in retail, you could never control what kind of people would come into your store. And I dealt with people that were really nice, and I dealt with a lot of people that were not so nice. That's what it's like when you deal with the public. And I'm used to that. And I grew up that way. And I always, in a way, it was like, I hope I would try and be able to talk to everyone. And I don't think when you say, when I associate with these people, that my viewers and followers are associating with them by extension, I don't believe that. I don't believe that because my viewers or followers are free to come and go as they please. And if they do not want me to, they don't even have to tell me. You can come and go as you want. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to provide a place where like-minded people can come and share all kinds of ideas. And I have to walk that walk, which means I have to be able to go to talk to people that I'm diametrically opposed to politically and find common ground with those people. And I think I do a pretty good job of it. And it becomes, if I only talk to people that I liked, that's just not the world. And then you say the people who have participated in the short film competition are associating with them. I don't see how. I mean, I'm here on my channel, and the people that I choose to present on this channel are people I think that espouse the ideas of the Burnettwork, or at least I feel that we can have a discussion a lot of people have said to me that I shouldn't, that as heel versus babyface, that he sometimes skirts a line. And I have to tell you, I've had nothing but great conversations with Az. And we are a lot of the time politically opposed to one another, but we can sit down and I think have really great conversations, whether we're geeking out about action figures or talking about The Prisoner. And I've really enjoyed my time collaborating with Az on my channel and his channel. And I would that was actually one of the highlights of my 2020 as far as YouTube went. And I would never want to give that up, and I understand you're very emphatic here. You say that you do not want to associate with them. I'm sure you get more subscribers out of these guest appearances, but at what cost? Well, I mean, I would think that the people that come to this channel feel I have something to offer them, but I ask you, what cost do you think it is? We are in a deeply divided, our country is more divided than I've ever seen. I mean, I wasn't really alive in the 60s where I was aware of the unrest that was happening. But I think more than ever, we need to be in a position where we can talk to each other, where we can go into, say, the enemy camp and find that common ground. Last night I even said on the show, because I'm keenly aware of what you're saying, and you're not the only one that says it to me, as evidenced by what I was saying before I even read your letter. But I think that we really have to start learning to talk to one another. If not, we're going to be in a world of hurt. And I think that one of the things that I've said, and I said it last night when I was on that stream, I said, we're all fans here. And really, we all really want the same thing. I mean, we're on the internet bitching about Star Trek and Star Wars and Doctor Who and The Last of Us Part 2 and whatever comic book, Safe Space and Snowflake. I mean, and it's gotten to the point where we're not going to be able, we're going to get to the point where we're just going to take baseball bats and beat each other to death. And that's where we're at. And, I was watching some of what happened in the Capitol. You would think, to me, I would think that by going into whatever you believe, whatever side you're on, I would think that both sides would have a reverence for the Capitol. The Capitol was here long before you were. And I don't mean you, I mean everyone. Long before everyone else was here, and it'll probably be here long after. One can only hope. And yet this idea that you get to go into this building and deface it, defecate in it, break windows, destroy things, I don't understand what gives you the right to do something like that, because the Capitol building stands for the very ideals, the very basis for what this country is about. it should mean things to both sides. Whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, whatever it is, I think that it's very, very, very important that we have to have some kind of reverence for our governmental system, because if not, we're lost. We're lost. And what I saw happening in the Capitol, that was base. It wasn't American. There's one thing to protest. It's a whole other thing to destroy and defame the people's building. And that's where we're at now. And I think it's all I can say is I don't want to live in that world. I want to hope that we can pull ourselves back from the brink from all of this, because if it's not worth, if this is the way people are going to be, let's not prolong the agony. Let's agree to go our separate ways and start our own country. Let's go do your own thing. But don't go to the seat of power protesting what you think is a stolen election and then destroy something that's supposed to represent all of us, all sides, all people. It was, and I have to say, I mean, I understand that you feel this way, and I totally hear you, and I understand how you feel. I think I do, but I have to say that I can't go with you when you say that if you're a fan of mine, does that mean that you have to agree with every single thing I do 100% of the time? Because when I go someplace, when I go on a channel, I am representing myself. This channel, when I'm on this channel, I'm trying to represent the Burnettwork. But when I'm off the Burnettwork, I'm representing myself. And what I'm trying to do is the ideals that I've tried to put in place for this channel, things like the film festival. I don't think any filmmaker who has a film here as part of the film festival needs to feel like it would bother me if somebody says, well, if you go over there, you're representing me. I don't think that's true. I have to reject that ultimately. However, I think that you have a very valid point here, and you're giving me a lot to think about in saying this. And what I think is important is that you can present these ideas to me, which you have done. Obviously, you wrote a thoughtful letter, and this is important. And this is the kind of thing where I'm going to ponder this now for a long time. And look, I want to believe the best in people. That's a nice thought, but it's also naive. Look, I am not naive. Trust me, I am not naive. But somebody has to take a first step. I am not going to be that person that is going to be look, I'm deeply cynical, but I'm not going to let that quell my enthusiasm for life. I mean, I've had a lot of shitty things happen in my career, and by all rights, I should probably be embittered, and I should have left LA a long time ago with my tail tucked between my legs. But I'm still having a good time. And part of having a good time is meeting people and interacting with people you don't necessarily agree with. And if nothing else, I feel like I can at least get people to be on their best behavior. I have to tell you, Ethan Van Sciver said something really interesting about people who like zombie movies as opposed to people who like vampire movies, and made this really compelling argument that people, because I said I like vampire movies, and he's like, and he basically came out and said that people who like vampire films are more attached to democratic policies, and the people that are really fans of zombie movies have betrayed the fact that they're Republican. And whether I believe in that or not, it certainly was compelling, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. And so Ethan Van Sciver just wasn't saying anything mean to me or anything like that, wasn't being disparaging, but said something in certain terms that I found interesting. And I honestly haven't stopped thinking about it. And I keep wondering if it's actually true. And I don't know yet, but it was interesting, and Ethan Van Sciver, he's a dad. He's got kids. He's a man that made a lot of money crowdfunding, appealing to his base. Now, if we like him or not, I guess you don't have to like him, but he's certainly doing things that are interesting or worth examining. And I admire him for that. Do I have to admire everything he says? No. Do some things that he said in the past bother me? Yes. But that's true of a lot of people. And if I didn't talk to everybody in the world that bothered me, where would I be? You know, and I got to tell you, by the way, I like people that I can trust to be who it is they really are. And I think there's something to say for that. Like, I think most people know who I really am. You're not going to find out that I'm Hugh Grant in The Undoing. Who I am, what you see is what you get. I'm not trying to snow anybody. And I think that I know a lot of people that I've been disappointed because they've turned out to not be who I thought they were. And at least there's a lot of people I trust because they are who they say they are. And I think that's important. So I don't think this idea, it's so strange to me that people are trying to recruit. You say that they're trying to recruit me and my fans. No, I think my fans are like you. They're smart. They can't, no one's going to be recruited by me. I'm not looking to recruit anybody. And I think that my fan base or the people that watch this show, even if they're not my fans, I know there's some people that watch my show that want to punch my face. And I think there's no way that anybody on this show can be recruited by anyone else. I think everybody here is very clear-headed and they go into things knowing what's up. I'm not interested in recruiting anyone. I don't want to recruit anybody into anything. I want people to be who they are. My desire with this channel is to provide a place where people can come and like I said, I want to be the host of a good party. And a good party is because a good party happens when a bunch of interesting people show up. And that means people you don't like, people you like. Sometimes you'll interact with people you don't like and it becomes interesting. I want to be the host of a party. And I've always said I open the doors, I provide a venue, but it's everybody here that makes the party worth attending. And that's what I hope to do. When I have a film festival, the film festival is about the filmmakers, and it's, again, about sharing the ideas. I am not trying to recruit anybody to do anything, and nor will I. So, okay, when you say that in the past my association with Jeremy has prevented me from clicking the join button or purchasing merchandise from your store, well, here's the thing. You're now, I would just ask you, in bringing this up at the end, what you are telling me is you're telling me, if I get your sentence to be correct, in the past, my association with somebody has prevented you from joining the channel, which means that's a monetary decision, because it cost you, whether it's 99 cents or you want to contribute up to, $100, whatever you want to do. So, and then you've also said you won't purchase merchandise from my store. So, are you then telling me, and that's fine. I don't demand anyone. I don't even make a big push about that kind of stuff on the channel itself. But what you're now saying to me, if I get this, if I'm correct, that you're telling me that to get your dollars, I must behave a certain way that you deem worthy of supporting. Otherwise, you won't give me money, which is that's fair. That's absolutely par for the course, and I think that you're free to do that. But I am never going to change who I am simply to get people's money. That's just not who I am, and I think that if you come to this channel for any length of time and you really watch me. Look, my entire career has been about doing what I want to do instead of I could have been much richer and more famous and more successful if I spent more time worrying about money. That's my problem. I haven't, and to my own detriment. Perhaps my Robservatory would be in much more posh digs than a garage right off the freeway. But I can't. And you say, and while for the moment I will continue to watch your show, I don't know for how much longer I will do so if you continue to associate with these people. But see, what you're doing here, what you've said in this last paragraph to me, is that unless I adhere to your standards of behavior, and by the way, this is absolutely your prerogative. People should do exactly what you're saying. But what you're doing to me is, in a way, it's kind of like blackmail. I mean, you're telling me that you're not going to be a viewer, you're not going to be a supporter unless I think the way you think. And that's perfectly fine for you, but it's not fine for me. And listen, what I want is, I want this channel to be full of viewers like you, Concerned, because I want to hear from you. I want you to write me letters like this. Whether it's a letter like this where you're concerned about my conduct, and you should be, because if I'm on the internet and I'm here doing a show and you want to watch this show, my conduct should be of concern to you. And I thank you for writing this letter, and I mean it. I mean it. But what I would ask of you is, keep me on the straight and narrow. I want you as a viewer. I want you to stay here. I want you to continue to write letters. I want you to continue to challenge me, because it challenges me. And I wonder, when people are saying these things to me, I appreciate it. And I just want you to know that this channel will always be a place where your views are welcome, whether you are a member of the channel or not. I don't check and see when people write me letters, whether they've subscribed to me or bought merch or anything like that. That's why I have letters, so people don't have to. I will read your letter whether you are a member or not, and I'm always going to be that way. I do very much appreciate that people support the channel, but I just want to say thank you for writing this letter in, and you are heard. I disagree with some of the things that you've said here, but I certainly appreciate that you've taken the time to write in and express these views, because that is exactly what this channel is all about. So thank you. And I hope I hear from you again, because, to be honest, you're exactly the kind of person I want to be a viewer of this channel. So thank you. Let's see. Omar94 says, "Hey, Rob, moderators and Post-Geek Singularity. I have a movie review, which I wanted to share with the Post-Geek Singularity and recommendation to those who have not seen it. That movie is Guy Ritchie's 2015 film adaptation of the 1960s TV show The Man from U.N.C.L.E., starring Henry Cavill, Armie Hammer, Alicia Vikander, and Hugh Grant. By the way, I love this movie. It's based on the TV show, of course. I love this movie. I did not see this film until last year. And you know what? I made a big mistake in waiting so long and regret not seeing it in theaters, because I enjoyed the film and found it really fun. So did I. While it was definitely more style over substance, I did still end up liking the film at the end. It was visually great to look at, from its cinematography, locations, costume design, hair and makeup, set design, and action set pieces. I also thought Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer were a great duo. However, there are problems with the film. The plot was a little too convoluted at times, as I felt the story needed to be slowed down a little in order to get a grasp of what was going on. While I think Cavill and Hammer were a great duo, I don't think their accents were the best, no. As Cavill's American accent and Hammer's Russian accent could have been a little better, since there were times in which I felt they were forcing those accents out of them a little too much. I also didn't really buy the relationship between Armie Hammer and Alicia Vikander's characters. Overall, despite some problems, I enjoyed The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and would recommend it to those who haven't seen it. It's a shame the movie flopped at the box office and had a lukewarm critical response, as I would have been interested in seeing a sequel. Thanks, and live long and prosper." Well, Omar, I would have loved to have seen a sequel too. I loved it. Right there with you. Listen, I'm going to jump into... I bought... By the way, I didn't see the movie in the theater either. What an idiot. I saw it I bought the Blu-ray because I heard it. People said I would probably like it, and so I bought it, and I did. I had not seen it. It was a blind buy for me, and so I bought it. There you go. Let's see, where was I? You know what? I missed the other day. Here's where I was. Chloe, who sent me a tip to start with Chloe from yesterday that I didn't get to. Chloe wrote, "What makes some movies have more nostalgia than others? 3 come to mind: Star Wars, Star Trek, and wait for it, Days of Thunder. Yes, Days of Thunder. Till this day, you still have people selling Days of Thunder merchandise at racing events, even with race commentators quoting from Days of Thunder during races, with the cars sometimes even running the paint schemes from Days of Thunder. From a movie 30 years old. So how is it some movies have the nostalgia effect and some don't? Well, Chloe, that's a good question. I think a lot about this. I think a lot about nostalgia, and I think that movies, like albums or like favorite books, they have to be, it's a combination of things. It's the subject matter and how good the movie is to us, our subjective view of whatever it is. It also has to do with the time in which we see these things, when do we experience them, and how much they ultimately mean to us after the fact. So you might love to read a book, but that doesn't mean it's going to resonate with you beyond the time you've read it. Or same with a movie. Like with movies, you come back and you watch them again and again. I find that there are certain movies, when I first saw them, 40 years ago, I love them, and then you get them on home video or whatever, and you watch them over and over again. And to me, and if you're interested in the outside world, like if you're a stock car racing fan or whatever, Daytona, whatever you want to, if NASCAR, if that's your thing, and you've grown up, it's not like there's a lot of NASCAR movies, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby, but Days of Thunder, Tom Cruise, Tony Scott, Simpson Bruckheimer. I mean, these are, there's not a lot there. So, I am not a NASCAR. I love watching car racing. I've always loved it. But I even know rubbing is racing. That's a line that Duvall said in Days of Thunder. The Hans Zimmer score, Nicole Kidman. There's a lot about that movie that you remember. And rubbin's racing, I'll never forget that. And it is, so I think that it's look, DeLoreans. You see a DeLorean now. They're trying to bring DeLoreans back. What do you think of? You think Back to the Future, 35 years ago. Why? Because there's not been, in human history, there's not been a better use of a DeLorean than Doc Brown turning it into a time machine. And when you hear that message becomes eternal. Like you can't not think of Doc Brown. And so I think with Days of Thunder, essentially car racing, stock car racing, what NASCAR, the cars are relatively, I mean, they've changed a bit, but stock car racing like that, they're not stock cars, are they? When you call it that, but it's essentially kind of the same thing, and it's like having an anthem. I think Days of Thunder is the anthem of that genre of car racing. The same way that, well, in my day, Stairway to Heaven was kind of an anthem. Anthem rock. Twisted Sister, Students Everywhere, We Don't Need No Education, Pink Floyd The Wall. These kinds of anthems, like when you're in school, there are certain songs that even now, 35 years later, school's out for summer, these will never get old. So I think that it's not just nostalgia, it's the fact that they're, what's the word, anthematic, whatever. I don't know if there's a word like that, but they're anthems. And I think nostalgia is part of it. Depends how much you like it, but it's also not just nostalgia. It's something becomes the thing that's just indelible. The Beatles' Birthday. Da-na-na-na-na-na, you say it's your birthday. That's never gone out of style. I mean, I get up on my birthday and I think that in my head. It's my birthday. One of the things I think, birthday. You think about that stuff. It's just part of the world. And I think Days of Thunder is that, I guess if you're into F1 racing, maybe it's driven, or it's the Ron Howard movie. Why am I drawing a blank? Chris Hemsworth and what's his face? Why am I drawing come on, man, tell me what, race, what's the word? God, why am I drawing a blank on that? You know what? Allow me. Why? It's just my brain is not. Rush, right? It's right. Yes, Rush. I don't know why I wasn't thinking about that, but I was thinking race. No, I knew it wasn't race. But anyway, there's just things like that that I think become indelible. Let's see. So that was Chloe's from yesterday. Roger Haynes sent in a super chat from yesterday. Thank you, which I didn't get to. JD Shady sends in a tip and says, "Hi, Rob. Teaser of KGF Chapter 2, it's an Indian movie, broke the record of Endgame teaser with over 5 million likes and 93 million views in its first 24 hours. It is the most anticipated movie of all time in India. I would love to know your reaction on the teaser." Well, I haven't seen the teaser. I'm going to have to go look at it. Let me look. KGF Chapter 2 trailer. Well, there it is. Hero Yash reaction. Oh, it's a reaction link. Look at all this reaction. World record YouTube views. Let's go see that trailer. I'm going to put this into the live chat. Let me find it for you, and I will put it into the live chat. I don't even know. I hear this, and I'm like, man, here's something I'm woefully misinformed about, or not misinformed, but how about not informed? So I'm going to go put this in the. I'm gonna go put this in the chat for all of you, and here it is. And again, I don't know this movie, but since we should all know it now. So I didn't see Chapter 1 now. Now I have to find out what it is. But there you go. I can't give you an answer. I wish I could, but I haven't seen it. I haven't watched it. So I am now we have Glenn Taylor. Our man Glenn Taylor's here. Glenn Taylor says, "Rob, I watched your Tango Shalom trailer and was highly impressed with what I saw and can't wait to see the whole movie. I wish you continued success." Well, thank you, Glenn. That means a lot. Look, Tango Shalom, it was a long time coming. It truly, like I said, is an independent movie in every sense of the word. You know, it's really interesting. And again, I'll tell you, this is why you have to be, whenever you put something out, and in the world. And when you do that, you have to think to yourself, okay, you have to take the good with the bad, right? There's nothing you can do. So here's something that was left on the trailer this afternoon. And so it doesn't matter how many, literally thousands of hours you work on a film. And there will always be this. So this is what happens. Somebody wrote, "This looks like shit. Who will ever pay dollars to see this trash?" Right? So as the administrator of the Tango Shalom trailer page, I wrote back, because you have to be mindful. I wrote back, I said, "Well, clearly not you. But perhaps one day you might come across this labor of love made by a great many dedicated people, and the finished product might just win you over." That's how I wrote back. Because look, if he says this looks like shit and who will ever pay dollars to see this trash, now I'm like, that's your opinion. And I have to be mindful of the fact that if that's how he truly felt, then that's how he truly feels. But that opinion, the knee-jerk response is like, "Fuck you, dude. Don't you know how many thousands of hours I worked on it?" It doesn't matter to him, that person. You just have to roll with it. And all you can try and do is like, you know what? I believe that the work stands up for itself, and it might not even be your kind of film, and you might not last 5 minutes into it. But if you stick with it, maybe by the end you'll go, "Huh, that's pretty good." So to me, I have to believe that the work will stand. And look, even if someone said to me, "Hey, I'm going to go see this movie, Tango Shalom," I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to spend my time watching that movie. But I can tell you this. We made it the best version of this movie it could possibly be. And I know that for a fact. So I get to walk away from my involvement in this particular project knowing I spent countless hours making sure that this version of Tango Shalom, the movie that exists, is the best version of the movie that was shot and conceived of that can exist. And I'm happy with that. I walk away knowing that we did our best job. Now, if people like it, they like it. I hope they do. If they don't, well, that's their prerogative too. But I hold my head high and I go, I did my best. And that, to me, that's what I love about this business, is that the satisfaction that I get is the process. And I know that we delivered, especially for the resources that we had to deliver. We did the best job we could, and we made a movie that a lot of people find to be good. So I thank you, Glenn. I hope you enjoy it. I think people might. My grandmother would have loved it. Willow is here. Hello, Willow. Just imagine, though, if you went into Fast 9 without knowing that Han was going to return, and you see Han strutting out on the big screen with his bag of crackers for the first time. How many seats away will people need to sit to avoid getting splashed? Well, let me tell you, I can, even as a middle-aged man, I can muster up a little bit of a distance. So I'd say you need to be like 2 or 3 rows over. But, Willow, you bring up a good point. I mean, I intentionally stayed away from Endgame and Infinity War spoilers. I honestly can tell you I knew very little about those films going into them, and it was delightful. I really hate the experience of everything, knowing everything. I mean, I know it's part of the world. It's part of what I talk about every day, so I have to know. But I wish that I lived in a world where I didn't, because that would be lovely. But that's, unfortunately, I can't. Endgame and Infinity War was like an experiment. I'm like, both of these movies, I'm going to go in, I'm not going to know anything about them, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't. And it was glorious. I had the best time ever. Everything was new to me. I'm like, oh my God, I had so much fun. But I really, I wish I didn't know that Sun Kang was coming back. Although I did call it. I did call it. If you go back to the John Campea show, I was saying, nope, I think he's alive. And I had no reason to believe that. I just was thinking about what they could do. So, Anon Gonzalez is here. Burnett, Discovery isn't like the real thing, is it? Kurtzman, I've never watched real Star Trek. Burnett, how sad. Star Trek is a thing of beauty. Kurtzman, each episode is made of our shit, That's the material we use in our writer's room. We deconstruct it to the base level and reform it into a script. It's pretty good for shit. Well, I see what you did there. You know what? This is something that really bothered me. Of course, if you watch Discovery, they tell you that in this episode, in the Star Trek universe now, the replicators are making food out of your shit, out of your excrement. And he even says it. The Admiral Vance, who I liked, Oded Fair, says, what you're eating is shit. Well, what I object to about that is 1,000 years into the future, if you have, and I've always suspected that replicator, in my own mind, in the Star Trek universe, why wouldn't you? Urine, your feces, effluents, whatever, it would all be recycled. It's matter when it's broken down to its atomic parts or taken apart and reformed again. It's not shit anymore. And it would be something that they've been doing. By the way, they were doing it in the 23rd century, so 800 or 900 years down the line, it would just be par for the course. So you wouldn't even turn around and say it's shit, because the whole idea of what human waste products would be is a natural order to it all. So there would be no horrible connotation to that. You wouldn't call it shit. And by the way, the taste of it, it's going to be recombined in the perfect way. It might not be, you might be able to tell that it lacks a little zhuzh in it, but I hated that they did that. That to me is once again the dumbing down of Star Trek. The idea would be in the 32nd century, even in the 23rd century, the idea of shit, like we still, I mean, shit's, it smells bad because we're not supposed to eat it again. That's how the natural order developed. But in the case of, in the Star Trek universe, it would just be par for the course. You recycle everything. You remove the elements and use them for something else. You wouldn't call it shit. But whatever. Yeah, that was something they did. And, okay, somebody in the writer's room thought they were being really clever But even when I was a kid, when you're looking at replicator technology, it was clear to me. Like, I've always said, well, what would toilets look like in the Star Trek universe? I have always maintained, they've never said this, and it probably would be impractical because the power involved, but I've always thought that that in terms of excrement in the human system, why wouldn't it just be beamed out of you? Instead of like the idea that you would have all of these toilets everywhere that would feed into like sewage in the Enterprise, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just have mini transporters that beamed out, or maybe when you use they could beam out before it even comes out of you. Beam it out and then put it somewhere else. But the idea of having a bunch of toilets all over the Enterprise means that you have to have pipes and water and all that stuff going all over the place. I never believed that. Star Trek 09 to me was so stupid, looking at all this water. No, you would use transporter technology and water would be created or assembled at will using that technology. So if you wanted water, it would basically be somewhere and it would be brought into existence when you needed it. But anyway, that's just yet another thing. Thank you for that. I like that conversation. Jeff Yerke is here. Hello, Jeff. Jeff says, hi, Rob. Greetings from myself and Mrs. Y. By the way, I don't think, other than Claude and Candida, who are the official couple of the Burnettwork, I don't think anyone I've ever met loves his wife more than Jeff Yerke does, because he never ceases to mention her, and I love that. Maybe Jeff is the official romantic of this channel, even though Claude and Candida saying they're the best couple already has a romantic component to it, but I just love the fact that Jeff Yerke loves his wife so much. Hi, Rob. Greetings from myself and Mrs. Y. It's her birthday today. She's in the living room rewatching all 18 of the Twilight movies. I want to put in a good word for a film we rewatched last night, 2014's Fury with Brad Pitt and Jason Isaacs. Also directed by David Ayer's World War II film, tells the fictional story of the U.S. tank crew Fury in the final days of Hitler. Great action, very good performances, great sound design and visuals. For 2 hours, we were carried away to enter another world. Live long and prosper, the Yerk Man. I love Fury. Great World War II movie. I totally dig it. So, yeah, that is correct. Good movie. Good call. Please give please give your wife, take my wife, please. Don't give me your wife. You love her too much. Please give Mrs. Y my very best. Happy birthday to her. And the fact that you're watching Fury and she's watching all 18 Twilight movies, I don't think there's that many. But I guess you could call the 50 Shades movies Twilight movies, because they were a spin-off. They were Twilight fan fiction that became something else. So what is there? 4 Twilight movies and there's 3 Shades of Grey movies. So there's really 7 Twilight movies, right? Have a heck of a birthday, and tell her that all the best from everyone here, all of us imagination connoisseurs. Emil Johansson sends in a tip and says, how is it physically possible for Marvel to have like 1 million upcoming shows that all have like huge budgets and stuff? Like, what if those shows all have sequels? How can they manage such content? Well, I think because people want to see it. You know, I think Marvel is doing a good job. And here's the thing, once you have a production pipeline and you've got a whole, I mean, you could be a crew person and work full time on Marvel movies. And I'm sure some people do. You can still crank out this content and they plan everything. I think the great thing with Marvel, what we've seen is they plan things. And so I think as long as they're planning and they know what's up and you've got strong creatives in charge, more the merrier. And as long as people are doing it. Jmeister25 sends in a super chat and says, I started watching Legion because of your praise of it in an old Collider video. Oh my God, Legion is so good, and its biggest strength is storyboarding. Well, yeah, I mean, I thought Legion was terrific, and what a show. And can you, David Howlett, Xavier's son, that they actually made that show and it ran for 3 seasons? Crazy, but cool. John, I'm glad you dug it. I love it when people come back and tell me they watch me say something on the show and they watched it because of that. So thank you for that. I love that. John says, I have to compliment you on your appearance yesterday on Echo Base Network. It included some of the best examples of common ground conversations I've seen on YouTube. Looking forward to new content from your meeting Theory and Ethan Van Sciver. St. Jude's Bettnay at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Yes, when I get off this chat on my show, I will jump over to Star Wars Theory. By the way, I've admired Star Wars Theory for a long time. I've enjoyed his channel and his enthusiasm. I loved his movie, and it was also a great pleasure meeting him. So, again, I really appreciate you saying so. See, even on this show, I get very different points of view. Very different points of view. Calvin, how are you? How's the new year? Calvin Bose is here. He says, Braxton watched Phantom of the Paradise. Wow. And he wants to know how, if the Phantom finished his music in the morning, they were able to do a whole production of it that night. That's a very good... Calvin has good question. Or Calvin, you've been a good parent. And I guess they just work fast. Those theater people, you never know what they can do. But that's a very good question. Calvin goes on to say, I've been watching the Andrew Griffith Show, and I want to know, with only one showrunner, how could they constantly contradict what happened in past episodes? For example, one season, Bandy can't sing, and the next season, he's full-fledged member of the choir. Well, I'll tell you, because they learn, and a lot of it happens off camera. You just have to assume that stuff happens off camera. Chloe is back. Chloe says, speaking of seeing celebrities in public, I once saw Kristen Stewart while I was at work. I didn't ask her if she was Kristen Stewart, but I was certain it was her. My coworkers don't believe me, but a lot of producers and actors come to this area. It probably was. You know what? The way you approach people is always my whole advice to approaching celebrities has always been, you don't go, oh my God, are you so-and-so? You kind of say, hey, are you Kristen Stewart? Listen, I got to tell you, I really like your work. And don't say the most obvious thing. Try and find something else that you love that they did that was not the number one thing that they did, so they actually know that it comes from somebody who knows something about them. But always kind of be quiet. Look around, make sure you're not going to embarrass them. But you should ask. And Calvin says, this happens with no one on the cast or crew noticing. I know. All I can say is it happens off camera. Nobody knows. You just think people evolve and mature between seasons of TV. Unless it's like Best of Both Worlds where nobody evolves because it takes place at that same moment. Brandon Sheehy is here and says, this weekend saw the sad loss of acclaimed British director Michael Apted, I know. His only Bond outing, The World Is Not Enough, added some much-needed style and panache back into the series before it jumped the shark with Die Another Day. I really like Michael Apted, but I think I started watching his series 7 Up, the series he did where he would follow people throughout their lives and film them every 7 years. If that was the only thing he did in his life, it's amazing. There's more to learn about humanity in that than in most things I watch. But I liked World Is Not Enough, or Twine as they call it. I liked it. It's not perfect, but I liked a lot of it. I thought it was great. And it has one of my favorite and the longest Bond pre-title sequence up until a movie called No Time to Die. It's called No Time to Die. I don't know. I've forgotten about it already. I'm dying to see it. I hope it's great. We shall see it. So yeah. Emma Bannon, our own Emma Bannon, the lovely Emma Bannon is here. Hi, Rob. On rewatching Deep Space Nine, it struck me how Adira is a ripoff of Ezri Dax. Both young, short, and with closely cropped hair. Neither wanted to be joined. Both had to be after an onboard ship accident where they were the only one available. Which brings me to my question. Who would you prefer to be stuck in a lift with? Stripe from Gremlins with a bucket of water and a snorkel, or Alex Kurtzman with a detailed recap of Discovery's 3rd season? P.S. Tango Shalom looks so good. Well, first of all, Emma, thank you for the kind words about the Tango Shalom trailer. I think I'm going to have to go with Alex Kurtzman because respectfully, I could use his detailed recap of Discovery's 3rd season to, if you didn't know who I was, to stealthily answer or ask him questions about how ridiculous the plotting on the show is. But about Ezri Dax, look, I agree with you. She even looks like, pardon me, she is not in real life. I have to say non-binary. I can't say she. Her character was called she until she corrected people. I don't want to misgender or dead name anyone. So let's just say Adira. Adira is, I think you're right, as a character. I was waiting. You know what I was waiting for all season? If you're non-binary and you are then in receipt of the symbiote who has lived binary lives, either as a man or a woman, but you identify as non-binary, what happens when you are given the memories and feelings and the understandings of people that have I thought they were going to do something with this. Like, it would have been really interesting to do what I find unfortunate about modern Star Trek. We now have Adira, who's non-binary, and Gray, the boyfriend, is trans. The actor's trans, but the boyfriend is trans. All fine and good. But what I would have wanted to see is an exploration of those issues. Like, it would have been from a science fiction context, it would have been really interesting for them to flat out and come out of and taken the attitude, like, in the Star Trek universe, trans people are absolutely real, naturally occurring. And if people want to transition, they just do because they've got the medical technology to do so, easy peasy, and it's a snap. And so it wouldn't be an issue at all. But it would be really interesting for Star Trek to have come out and said, look, this is a naturally occurring thing. We now know that. No big deal. But I really would have liked to have seen Adira as a non-binary person having to deal with a sudden onslaught of people that were binary. Like, how do you reconcile it as a trill, like as a human being who is accepted, which, by the way, isn't that not supposed to work? I mean, it was already established, but okay, we'll go with it. It works for whatever reason. It's 32nd century, whatever. But it would have been a really interesting exploration. Like, you know, Star Trek, if you go back to the Outcast and you deal with the genderless society, and Riker falls in love with Soren, who has more female feelings than and it's wrong in their society. Or you look at episodes like Rejoined, where the Dax, they're both now the symbiotes, they're in the body of women, and you're dealing with that. Or Cogenitor, where there's a third gender in a race, and that third gender is treated like shit. Those are interesting sci-fi stories, and I really thought that by having a non-binary character, a new character, that they would do something with that, like make that the focal point of a story, not just tell the gay character, I'm non-binary. Well, why is it that they've segregated these characters? I don't get it. It's so weird to me. I would love to have seen a story that had something to do with maybe being non-binary is what saved the day. That there was some insight in there that was necessary, that provided a point of view that someone else or the other people didn't have, and it was able to save there, something like that. But that bummed me out. I mean, I hate it when, to me it seemed like the worst kind of tokenism, and I think it's a big lost opportunity. But so is the entirety of Star Trek Discovery. So why should I feel not to be? But I think you're right about that. She's totally Ezri Dax, even to the point of Adira, pardon me, is not she. Adira is non-binary, but she was identified as she for the most of the season until she objected. But yes, very much Ezri Dax, very much so. Just Plain Steve says, sorry about your Seahawks. You had to bring it up. You had to bring it up. Better to lose now than to make it to the Super Bowl just to lose to my Chiefs. Love you. Love your show, Rob. Well, Just Plain Steve, your Chiefs are formidable. I would put money on them winning the Super Bowl. So good for you. Good on that. And Godspeed to those Chiefs. Anonymous says, have you seen Cuties yet? I have not. I talked about it a lot. And I just, you know what? I already forgot about that. I have not seen it. Norwegian Kryptonian sends in a super chat and said, have you seen a Norwegian movie called Troll Hunter? I own Troll Hunter on Blu-ray, and it is delightful. It is a great, great, great movie. Really liked it a lot. And again, watching, I'm telling you, I love seeing fantasy films from foreign countries because they're different than, I don't think the Americans would have ever made that movie. I love Troll Hunter. Michael Preston sends in a super chat and says, I know a way to make Discovery 1,000 times better. Can they stop hugging and talking about their feelings for God's sake, and please stop worshiping Burnham? I don't think that's ever going to happen. Calvin Bose says, all the President's Men came out 2 years after Nixon left office. How long do you think it will be before they make a film about the Trump administration? I say within 3 years. What do you think? I don't know, because I don't know if there's anything that really happened in the Trump administration that is, maybe something like this might. I don't know. I think we were a little bit more sane back in the 70s. I never thought I'd say that, but I think we were, which is why they did that. Yeah. Echo Base Network, the people I was with yesterday, sent you a link for the Star Wars Theory charity stream on Facebook Messenger if you can make it. Great stream last night. It's always a party when R&B is in the house. Well, I thank you, Echo Base Network. Again, Star Wars Theory, who I was on with last night, is doing a stream to benefit St. Jude's. Star Wars Theory has 2.8 million subscribers, and he's using that to raise money for St. Jude's just for fun, just to do it. I think that's pretty good. That's pretty admirable. Jason S. is here and says, let's get real, Rob. We heard every day for 4 years Democrats and the media spreading a conspiracy theory that Trump colluded with Russia and had stolen the 2016 election. You participated in spreading those conspiracy theory lies. Why did you do that? Well, to tell you the truth, I don't necessarily think they were lies. I think there's, look, our government has been hacked. We've had Russians hacking our system for most of last year. This is true. It was there. I think that this is there is ongoing cyber attacks into this country and incursions every single day. And I think that again, show me the evidence, but we know we're being hacked. And conspiracy theory lies. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I do believe, and I do know, that we are being hacked every single day. Our data is being manipulated. We are being data mined. We are being, every single day. I know for a fact, if I looked at various social media channels of my own, where there are bots, foreign bots, whether I used to call them jokingly on Collider Heroes, Russian hot bots. I am constantly getting on Skype, on everything. I get pop-ups from, hi, I'm a hot girl, and write me back, like as if I believe any of that. It happens all the time, constantly. And the idea that, there wasn't any kind of collusion. The Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, has been involved in disinformation campaigns since, the wall fell, in one way, shape, or form. And we have given them tools. If you don't think that there isn't, and when we say, the real question is, was it done knowingly? Well, there were a lot of indictments that certainly people were proven to be, not doing the most savory things. It's not like none of it was true. A lot of it was true. And I don't believe that I don't think that Trump necessarily colluded with Russia, but Russia certainly manipulates we are the most malleable people. If you don't think that we're getting manipulated, not just by the Russians, but by everybody. I get manipulated by Sideshow Toys because my analytics show up. I get Sideshow Toy ads. Oh, here's the latest Star Wars hot toy. Have you bought the Heavy Mando figure yet? No, I haven't. Here's an ad for it. Click on it. There is that. Okay. Keaton Toothman says, really enjoy the Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. The films posted last night. There's more tonight, including, maybe yours. Yes, there are. There's going to be more coming tonight. I'm glad you liked them. I liked them too, actually. Jason S. sends, come on, man. Pedo Biden is a fascist who colludes with big tech to silence off the internet, his critics, his political opponents, and newspapers who report on his criminal conduct. If Trump were doing this, you would demand he be impeached and arrested for treason. First of all, where's the evidence of that? That's what I'd have to ask. Where is your evidence? Not just hearsay, but actual evidence. When you say pedo Biden, come on. Where's that evidence? Where is it? I mean, remember the old QAnon idea of the pizza parlor where they said stuff went on in the basement? There was no basement in that pizza parlor. But if you're going to say stuff like that, and when you say big tech, what do you mean by big tech? Like big tech in general? When you say big tech, you got to be specific. Like if we were going to go into think about you going into a court of law. If you were going to go make your case, when you say big tech, that's just a general term. Who? Which big tech? Which company? There's got to be a paper trail. You can find everything on the internet. Colludes with big tech. You know, you weren't saying that about Joe Biden 4 years ago when he was the vice president under Obama. I don't remember anybody saying any of those things. And a fascist, he's already been vice president. Nobody was saying these things now. You're saying them now. I would ask, and I wouldn't demand. Look, here's the difference. I've been around for a while. Donald Trump was a chump in the 80s. He was a joke. He was the butt of jokes. That's why he was in Home Alone 2. He was a fixture in New York. The guy is a failed businessman. He squandered money. He was a profligate spender. He's a bad businessman. He was a bad businessman 35 years ago. You know, and I don't understand when did Donald Trump become somebody? Look, I haven't liked Donald Trump since the 80s. I couldn't believe he got elected president. And he didn't do anything while in office that convinced me that he deserved to be there. And his conduct since the election this year, everything else, if you didn't forget about everything else, his conduct since the election has sealed it for me. But when you say these things, Jason, you've got to show me your evidence. Show me the evidence. I mean, you know, if you go into a court of law, you got to have evidence. And you say these things, you've got to have evidence. Otherwise, saying these things is just, you're not going to get anyone to listen to you. So, Ziggy says, conservative here, love this channel. Can't we all just get along? I would wonder that myself. James Taylor, have you seen Fire and have you seen Rain? Hey Rob, longtime viewer, first time sending in a tip. Well, thank you. Thank you for supporting the channel. I very much appreciate that. I'm sure you've gotten into this before, but in your opinion, what is more difficult, making a Star Trek movie or a TV show? Also, do you think we'll get any more Star Trek movies? As I love 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 9. Are we going to get? You know, I think we will. I think we will get more Star Trek movies, but I think I would have thought a Star Trek series would have been easier to make than films, but I've seen 4 seasons of Kurtzman Trek now, including Picard. Well, 5 if you want to include Lower Decks, but I don't really include Lower Decks. But yeah, I haven't seen what I would consider to be great Star Trek since, I think the last great Star Trek that I really, really liked as Star Trek were some of the stories in season 4 of Enterprise, like the Vulcan trilogy or Demons and Terra Prime. I thought that was good Star Trek stories. But yeah, it's weird. I think it's hard to do both. But I miss Star Trek movies. I'd like to see one that I really liked. John sends in a super chat and says, too bad the U.S. Congress doesn't discuss Star Wars like what was seen on the Echo-based network. You were a fine ambassador and represented the Post-Geek singularity with great eloquence. Looking forward to seeing you on St. Jude's benefit tonight. You know, it's funny. See, you get all those kinds of things, and what can I say? That's why I represent all points of view. I try, and I don't. You know, I would say that my life would be slightly diminished if I hadn't gone on that stream last night. For me, I found it enjoyable. And there you go. Mexican Iron Man. Hello. Wow, that is very, very generous of you, Mexican Iron Man. I don't even know what to say to that other than thank you very, very much. Mexican Iron Man says, Mr. Burnett, thank you for coming on the show last night as executive producer for Echo Base Network. You were okay, on the show last night. As executive producer for Echo Base Network, you were invited, you and your outstanding crew chief meant and current wisdom via fandom. I shall continue to support you as I have been your friend for 20 years. Well, Mexican Iron Man, thank you for that, and thank you for the generous support of the channel. I very much appreciate that. Again, the thing about Echo Base Network is you guys, the Echo Base Network went out and made something. And you know me, I'm a big advocate of that. I'm a big advocate of making anybody that is going to go out. Look, when you make anything and put it out in the public space, man, that takes some balls because it could be the best. There are people that don't like The Godfather. There are people that don't like Shawshank Redemption. You might make the best thing in the world, and someone's going to say, like, well, as someone did on my own Tango Shalom page, this movie, I wouldn't pay any money for this trash. All I can say is, well, my next one will be better. But so I've always liked you guys over there, and it was very generous of you to support the channel in that way. Thank you very much. Editorial change. Oh, Iron Man goes on and says, oops, I meant to say you were invited due to your excellent career achievements, fandom knowledge, and sorry for the typos. I'm running to catch a flight. Mike. Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. My excellent career achievements and fandom knowledge. Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that. But as I was saying, I'm a big fan of Echo Base Network, especially for those guys going out and making something. Jackson Perez sends in a super chat and says, hey, Rob, I watched the stream yesterday and was so happy you did it. I love most of you guys. And it's the first time in a while I just smiled out of joy. Well, Jackson, I want to thank you for smiling out of joy. Joy is joy to you, friend. You are of the body, if you're a Star Trek fan. But thank you, Jackson. I appreciate that. Just a Brown Girl is here. Hello, Just a Brown Girl. For those of you who don't know, Just a Brown Girl is also a filmmaker, and she's a friend of the channel, one of the foundational members of the Post-Geek Singularity. Just a Brown Girl says, hi, Rob. I need help from the Post-Geek Singularity quick. As you know, I've been building up my bona fides before I pitch Hollywood proper with my fantasy tetralogy pitch. I finished my animatic that I want to show to Seth Green. I will post that for the PGS. I still haven't worked out how and where, but I digress. So last night, I created a Wikipedia page for my first feature film, The Road to Sundance. And they rejected it because I don't have press reviews. What? We made this movie before the streaming revolution, but it already exists. These days, you can just pay a fee and get it on Amazon. Not so much in 2008, or even now if your film is not in HD. We made this movie completely outside industry circles with good actors, not recognizable names at a time when film festivals were scarce, and acceptance of a truly indie film like ours into them was unheard of. Who can help me? There's a free link to it online, and I would be eternally grateful. My email is circledtakes. I see what you did there. I like that. circledtakes@yahoo.com. Brownie points for whomever can explain what my email means. Well, I can, but I don't want to cheat. I'll let someone else explain what does circledtakes@yahoo.com. What does circled takes mean? In the film business, without Googling, I said it was the film business. Oops. Well, it's pretty far away, but what is a circled take? Sidebar. Whoever can explain what my email means. Sidebar, she wasn't a recognizable name at the time, but The Road to Sundance was the first leading role in a feature for our then leading lady, Simone Missick, formerly Simone Cook. Well, there you go. Wait, she goes on. The actress from Luke Cage, currently starring in All Rise. So anyone who has a site with reviews and the patience for a sweet, no-budget, esoteric rom-com, please hit me up. I think I have until Wednesday. Ever your harbinger of hopefulness, I am just a brown girl. And as I post this, you did it again. Love and respect for a little-known film made with love. It's uncanny. So the road to Sundance, ladies and gentlemen, we got to help Just a Brown Girl out. Find a review of it. I mean, you might be able to go to that actress's Wikipedia page and add to that. Is there an IMDb page too? There's got to be a way to help you out. Got to be a way. Let's see. Oh, that's all. I didn't miss Just a Brown Girl. You're all there. James Taylor said, have you ever seen the 2016 horror indie movie called The Void? I have. You know what? That's a movie I've always been meaning to buy on Blu-ray. I actually watched that, I want to say, on Netflix. I liked it. Personally, I think it does what no other movie has done since John Carpenter's The Thing. The Void is one of my favorites to rewatch and has inspired me to start making my own short film. You know what, you guys? I like The Void a lot. A little Lovecraftian in there. I can see why you would compare it to The Thing. But I like The Void a great deal. I'm going to go order that right after this stream, as a matter of fact. Alexander Wilson says, I'll be honest, I almost stopped watching your show after your shoot to kill thing. I follow you on Twitter and saw it posted in live time. My grandpop grew up with Dr. King, and his message of nonviolence was embedded in me. Well, if you saw me post it in live time, you must have watched the video, too, of David Dorn on the sidewalk. That really fucked me up, to be honest. But I appreciate that you're still here, Alexander. And don't think I've forgotten about Quinn Snyder. Don't think I have. Alexander says, never meet violence with violence. What you said was the antithesis of Dr. King, who is one of the greatest people born in this nation. Also, shoot to kill to protect property was the motto that got Ahmed Arbery killed less than a month from your tweet. Uh-oh. You know what? I keep looking at this. Let me check something, because I have to record a podcast tonight, and I just want to make sure it's the same time we did it last week, which is at 7:30. Let's see. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay, we're good. I'm good for that. Let me just respond. Okay, and I am good for that. So, no, you're right. And look, when I made that incendiary tweet, it was also supposed to be this over-the-top incendiary tweet. I didn't mean, it was more like, where was all of these Second Amendment people who believe in carrying around with them deadly force, and where was anybody to save him? So, but I know it didn't come off that way. Louis Tully. Requiem for Methuselah is underrated in my humble opinion. I love Requiem for Methuselah. I don't like the idea of Raina Kopek. The idea that Kirk so quickly falls in love with a woman in that episode, that's a mistake, but I love the character of Flint. And by the way, if you want to read a great Star Trek book, the Reeve Stevens Star Trek novel Federation has that character under the name of Micah Brack, I think. You got to check that out. It's really good. Roger Haynes sent in a super chat. Thank you, Roger Haynes. I appreciate that. Legion0129 sends in a super chat and says, I found you via the John Campea show. I found Gary via you. I found Az via Gary. I would lose so much respect if you stopped talking to them. Please don't change. I won't stop talking to them. And I love Az. Attic Hatch Sound sends in a super chat and says, in Han Solo's voice, beaming up feces ain't like crapping turds, boy. You could end up taking out a kidney or liver. It's pretty good. I like that. Alexander I like that. Alexander Wilson says, the three men ran down a black man like a pig, armed with guns and a pickup truck. They thought they were protecting property when they executed a black man jogging. That video, again, freaked me out. I saw that video. That was one of the more disturbing things I've ever seen in my life. That's what I was thinking when you tweeted that. You tweeted those men's message. No, I wasn't tweeting those men's. What I was trying to say is that where was somebody to protect David Dorn? You know, David Dorn was first of all, father of 5, grandfather of 10. He was protecting a pawn shop, and these guys these armed robbers went to this store specifically to rob it while there was civil unrest. They were using the cover of civil unrest to go commit armed robbery, and David Dorn was trying to prevent it. And my point is that if somebody had deadly force, maybe he would have not been killed. And that's what I was trying to. That was my message. Do I believe that deadly force should be used? No. And was I trying to? None of those. This was a situation where an armed bad actor came specifically to commit a crime, and David Dorn was there standing in opposition of that crime and was gunned down because of it. Now he was an impediment to this crime being committed and was killed for it. And my point was that where was the outrage of that? And the man was gunned down in cold blood. And what you're talking about is especially the jogger. The people went out. There was not deadly force being used there. It was somebody was just looking at something. There was no crime. I mean, maybe you could say criminal trespass, but it wasn't. I mean, it was a house that wasn't even. It was being built. When I was a kid, I played in unbuilt houses all the time. I loved doing that. Who didn't? And that jogger, it was disturbing. He didn't do anything. Nothing. He did nothing. Jono D says, hi from Down Under. I find your approach to life and interacting with others is highly evolved. Well, I don't know about that. We're all grown adults and should be able to talk without being labeled something. You bring so much value to those conversations. I love your work. Well, Jono D, thank you. And I love everybody that comes from the land down under. As people know, I lived in Sydney for a year, and I lived in Tamworth for a month. And I love Tamworth, Gunnedah Shire. Actually, Gunnedah Shire is outside of Tamworth, but that's where we built the Smallville set. But I liked Tamworth. Alexander Wilson said, on Karen Hunter's show, she said that Watchmen was the blackest show ever on TV, much blacker than Roots. I kind of agree. I thought Watchmen was a masterpiece, and it was huge in the black community. Your thoughts on Watchmen in context with today's event? Did something happen today that I'm unaware of? No, but I will say this. I have to tell you, I thought I appreciated Watchmen from that perspective. And I think I don't know if I am fit to speak on the blackest show ever on TV, but you might very well be right. I think what Watchmen really did was it really got to the heart of the black experience in America, from what I understand. And hearing you say that leads me to believe that it was that way. I don't know if it needed to be a sequel to Watchmen. I think the story that was telling didn't have to be necessarily a sequel to Watchmen. I think it might have been even more powerful if it was its own unique thing. But I understand Watchmen was what sold it. I'm conflicted about whether the Watchmen show is a good sequel to the Watchmen comic, but as a show unto itself and what it had to say about the black experience in America, I think you're probably right. I think Karen Hunter is probably correct about that. Devin Hilton says, will we ever get a Masters of the Universe film? I think so. I feel like this has been talked about for 20 years. To me, a great story is there. Well, there's two different Masters of the Universe animated shows being made, so I think probably maybe. I thought maybe. Steve Bryant sends in a super chat and says, Rob, I loved the Tango Shalom trailer. Will you be coming to Chicago for the festival? I wish that I could. I wish I could. I love Chicago. I came to Chicago to show Free Enterprise, and I know it's not the best, but my first actual Chicago pizza was at Gino's East, which I liked. I've had much better Chicago pizza since, but I still like Gino's East. I shouldn't say much better. I like Gino's East, but I love Chicago. I love Chicago. My God, what a city. And I wish I could go, but it's going to be virtual this year because of COVID. If not, I would so come to Chicago. I would so come to Chicago. The Seattle Seafucks sends in a tip and says the Capitol Police did a better job stopping people this week than the Seahawks offensive line. Oh, oh, you're gonna make me cry. You are correct. Oh boy, that was bad. It was bad. Pain. I'm gonna be in pain for that. Not since the Super Bowl. Not since that pick on the 1 yard line. That was a painful game. Well, on that note, everybody, what a rollicking good time this has been. I want to thank everybody for being a part of the show. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel the way you do. Everybody's been so generous. Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for writing letters. If you want to write a letter to this show, and I am backlogged, but still send them in, you can go to the Burnettwork.net website. You can also go, you can see our great moderating staff, beginning with the Richard, Joshua Levesque, Justin Toner. I don't know who else is here, but I think you guys are here. Mr. Derringer is here. Thank you for being here, Mr. Derringer. And my great moderating staff for moderating. And you can go to the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page, the Whining About Movies Facebook page, the whatchamacallit, the Post-Geek no, I already said that. The Let's Get Physical Media Facebook page and the Fully Articulated Facebook page. And you can leave your thoughts there and interact, and there's watch parties and all kinds of things. Go join. Once again, let me reiterate, please go to the YouTube page, Tango Shalom the Movie, and click on the actual, the trailer will play when you get to that page, but actually click on the trailer, and if you could watch it and subscribe and like and all that. When I was getting on this show, my goal for this weekend, and I've recruited you all into that, was to see if I could get 10,000 views on this trailer. And let's see if we did. And if we did, I'm going to be so proud of you guys. Tango Shalom the Movie. As I'm looking here, let me see. Oh, sailed 10,150 views. And if you could go and like and subscribe and say something, this is what we're trying to do is not just go to festivals, but get the movie sold. And nowadays, as an independent filmmaker who has mastery over the internet, we use that to help sell the movie, because nobody ever heard of this movie really. It came out of nowhere. The first public glimpse of this film was that trailer on Friday. It's never really been screened anywhere except in friends and family capacity as we were working on it. So now it's going to come out. So that's pretty cool. And so thank you all very much. Jason S. sends in a tip again and says, Biden recently essentially called the police force racists who were attacked at the Capitol building. Calling police racists is designed to incite violence against the police. The police should refuse to defend people who put targets on their backs. You mean like the president? Telling people to come and do those things? Like, you can't have it both ways. And the fact is, there are racist cops just like there are racist people. There's all kinds of different people. There's a lot of great cops. As a matter of fact, there's a lot more great policing. And remember, the police, it's not just, the police force is comprised of all kinds of different kinds of people. There's detectives, when your house is broken into or your car is stolen. I've had both, since I lived in LA, I've had really shitty experiences with the cops. I've also had really great experiences with the cops. More often than not, I'd say I've had very good experiences with the police. And but there's two instances in particular that were really particularly shitty. One happened to me and one didn't happen to me. One was something I witnessed. And I think the job the police have to do is a very difficult job. And they're expected to know and be a lot of things to a lot of people. And it's a rough job. And, I think that, like everything else in our society, we need to sort of de-escalate the rhetoric and get to the root of these problems and figure out, well, how can we need the police, because as our population, our population needs the police. I think everyone will agree that there is no way that our society could exist without police, unless you want to live in the Old West. We need police. We need law. We need the rule of law. And in order to do that, we need to figure out ways that we can help the police more effectively do their jobs. And, have less people killed. But if you look at how many cops are killed in the line of duty, it's pretty staggering. So remember that. For all the people that die in police incidents of any color, there are a lot of cops that get killed too in the line of duty. And so it's a tough issue. I don't presume to know anything about how to solve these problems. But I find, Jason, Biden recently called the police force racists who were attacked at the Capitol building. Did he? Where did he say that? Where did he say that? And in what context did he say that? And I don't mind you saying these things, but please write, say, oh, I don't know, in whatever particular newspaper he said that in, or send me a link to a video or something. Joe Biden said this. Show me the clip, or at least quote it. Have a reputable news source, where it came from, because I can't take you on your word for this kind of thing because it's all hearsay. So anyway, but I want to thank everybody for writing in. Thanks everybody for generously supporting the channel, and I hope everyone stays safe. I will be back tomorrow on the John Campea Show, and I think I'm on the John Campea Show tomorrow. I would assume so. But John's in the process of moving. He's now a proud homeowner. He's going to move in, which is very cool. So, yeah, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. I will be back on this show. And tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen, whining about movies, we are going to talk about Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead. Elizabeth and I are going to drink a bottle of wine and talk zombies. That's tomorrow night at 7:30. Same bat time, same bat channel. I want to thank all of you very much for today's show. And please, there'll be more IICFF films dropping tonight, and a lot more, actually. And we'll see. I'm getting to the end slowly but surely. And show number 600 Saturday. Remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you imagination connoisseurs out there, have a better day. Now, I'm going to go jump over to Star Wars Theory, who's doing a stream today where he's raising money for St. Jude's. So if that isn't a good cause, I don't know what is. So hopefully I'll see you all over there. And please go and hit a like. Watch the Tango Shalom channel on the YouTube channel, Tango Shalom the movie. Please subscribe. Please like. And hey, if you think it looks like trash and no one's going to pay to see that movie and you want to leave that comment, you're welcome to do that too. Because when you make something, you put yourself out there, you open yourself up for criticism. And I understand that. So thanks, everyone. Stay safe. And, yeah, please join us for a rewatch of the OC. I kid you not. Elizabeth and I are doing that. Da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na. California, I've been here.